This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
In the general tenor path around college athletics, I would say is one of disgust. One Big 12 AD texted me today, we lost our soul today. And look, like there was a lot of hyperbolic reaction to this, but gambling had always been I joked it was like the Good Will Hunting thing. You hit a cop, you're going to jail. There were always significant consequences for gambling, and that changed today because of this. Now, like the NCAA is expected to appeal this case. Now, whether the timeline of that appeal matches with when it matters is what remains to be seen, correct? Like the NCAA could get a hearing in February, and Brendan Sorsby will have to combine. He doesn't have to go. It doesn't matter. It would be rendered moot. Yeah, this is certainly a day, Pat, that is certainly going to have ripples for a long time.
That is the voice of Pete Thamel, who was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, and we are opening with college football today. And you may be wondering why? Well, because massive story that went down yesterday, and we just really didn't get to it with how much Cardinals conversation that was taking place. But the decision has fallen for quarterback Brendan Sorsby. And for those that may not know, Sorsby is the quarterback that transferred from Cincinnati to Texas Tech on January. He's expected to help Texas Tech become a playoff team. And he admitted, what was this, back in April, I think, to gambling on college football. Most of the time, a lot of it, teams that he was a part of. It started back in 2022 when he was a member of the Indiana Hoosiers and has led to since, $90,000 in bets, I believe is what the article Stuart Mandela put out on The Athletic. This individual had placed over his time in college football. He went into rehab for it, which lasted about 35 days. The NCAA told him, hey man, you're not coming back to college football because you gambled on the sport that you were playing. And then it went to the courts in Texas, and yesterday a judge in Texas decided that he should be eligible to play. Welcome into BK and Ferrario. Alongside Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Man, I agree with everything I agree with everything Stuart Mandela wrote about Brendan Sorsby. Like, this is just disgusting for college football. This is disgusting for NCAA. And I think the title of his article was "The word unbelievable has become something that everybody uses when it comes to sports, but this is something that it truly applies to." Because Pete Rose had to die before the sport basically said, hey, man, come on back into Major League Baseball. But Brendan Sorsby, because he has the chance to help Texas Tech be a playoff-eligible team, can place $90,000 worth of sports bets with him playing the sport, and college athletics basically saying, cool, we'll turn away from this one. And I think the judge was the one that was speaking about how, well, it's more beneficial for this young individual to be around elite coaching and training than it is for him to be out of college athletics because of a mistake he made.
Yeah.
A mistake he made, I can understand. This is $90,000 worth of mistakes for 4 years that he admitted to. That's a lot of mistakes. And as T-Bone, you mentioned in the office, the bigger concern now for college athletics is worrying about the integrity of the game. Now, if we're just being cool with a guy who's placing bets on games that he is participating in, there's no black and white line anymore. Welcome to even more gray in the NCAA, which for all of their ish that they have had about being the wild, wild west and NIL and athletes being paid and everything that goes into it. Credit to the NCAA for saying, no way, this guy should not be back in our sport. But yet a Texas judge, surprise, surprise, said, no, he should be able to play.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable that Sorsby's going to be allowed to play.
See, unbelievable.
It's ridiculous, honestly, because, I mean, you look at this, I mean, the most damning thing that you could have now if you're the NCAA are serious questions about integrity of the game, because if Sorsby can do this, why can't other kids decide to try and sue the NCAA and say, I had a gambling addiction and the NCAA is kind of preventing me from being able to get back to what I need to be, right? And that is a dangerous precedent to be set by the judge in Texas, and the NCAA is going to appeal this. As you heard Pete Thamel say, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's going to really matter because, one, they may not have the court hearing until February, which doesn't matter at all.
Surprise, surprise, you get to play a whole season.
Exactly. And the fact of the matter is, the 4 judges that are on the appeals court are from Texas Tech. They got their degree from there. So, I mean, it's just unbelievable is the right word to use for this scenario, because, I mean, this is just ridiculous. You know, the professional leagues are able to police their gambling policies, as we've seen over time, as we saw with the NBA with Terry Rozier, as he's under federal investigation, as we've seen at Major League Baseball when they have caught guys for doing this. The one thing I thought the NCAA would be able to enforce was going to be this, right? I thought this would be the red line that they would be able to enforce to make sure of, hey, you gamble on sports while you're a college athlete, and especially on your school while you are there, and could have an impact on the game. This is a red line and it's a no-no, and you're going to be out for the rest of your collegiate career. And yet a federal judge just said, no, that's okay. We are allowing this. I don't know how you come back from this if you're the NCAA. And I understand, look, ADs across the country are furious. Conferences across the country are furious. I'm fascinated to see what the Big 12 conference does, because there's really only one team in the Big 12 that supports this decision, and that is Texas Tech. I can't believe we have gotten to this point, and I think it is a shame that we have gotten here. And if the NCAA can't police this, the NCAA is dead. Now, we knew that pretty much, but the fact that they can't even police gambling restrictions on their own sports, that is the end of the NCAA, and it's why that you're trying to see that the Senate is trying to get stuff passed to get a bill to try and get them some protections.
Yeah, we've had a series of rulings, right? We've had a series of instances in which you've seen the NCAA essentially rendered toothless, but this far and away takes the cake. I'm fascinated to see, honestly, how it plays out with respect to the Big 12, with respect to these other schools that currently have Texas Tech on the schedule. Are we actually going to get some real grit here from commissioners, from ADs, pulling out of games, out of which, you know, they are available right now and scheduling moving forward? But some of my favorite wordplay here, guys, contained in the documents that we've seen so far. Judge Ken Curry talking about how this could cause imminent and irreparable injury and damage to Brendan Sorsby. We're not talking about an isolated incident here. No, rather, you outlined it, Alex. We're talking about more than 9,000 bets encompassing $90,000 plus. This is not a single solitary infraction. And I'm not going to pretend by any means here that it's easy to be able to figure out and dissect all of the possible mental health related issues in play. But if you're talking about trying to uphold any form of punishment, anything whatsoever, I just cannot believe how plausibly this young man is going to be able to continue to go back to the college football well. It is fascinating. It's going to continue to evolve. But I think by the same token, guys, we know how this story ends. You can keep kicking that legal can, so to speak, down the road until the conclusion of the season. And then at that point, Texas Tech will have been able to achieve what it wanted all along, and that is to still be relevant in the CFP end of things.
And the frustrating part as well, on top of let alone the integrity of the game, which now becomes under question, is the fact that we just heard this from schools over the last couple of weeks as media days have been going on. Yeah. We want to know what the rules are, right? We want to have enforcement. We want this, we want that, we want to be enforced. And then the moment one school has an issue like this pop up, Texas Tech could have said, hey, Sorsby, dude, this is a red line. We're not going to back you in this. And instead, Texas Tech is applauding right now of, hey, you know what? He gambled on stuff. That's okay. Whatever, man. If we can make the college football playoff, that is money in our pockets.
And I was just going to say, and you know why they're applauding? And you know why those teams won't have the audacity to back out of playing Texas Tech? Because of money.
The bottom line trumps everything.
Money controls everything. Now, here's the part that kind of bugged me about it, and it's just kind of a side tangent with it. But, like, I also think this it waters down going to rehab. Like, you went to rehab, and people were like, well, you know what? He got the fix that he needed. Guys, he hid this, allegedly, and Stuart Mandela's piece, for 4 years.
Yeah.
Until they flagged him. And then it was, oh, shoot, I'm caught. Yeah, I did this, and I'm going to go to rehab for help. And it was 35 days of rehab, and he came out, and everybody's supposed to turn up the eye with it. Look, I'm all for second chances, and somebody on our Air Comfort Service text line at 314-399-9646 said, I hear you guys talk about this stuff all the time, but we see players that get DUIs, that have domestic violence, that are welcomed back into college football, and we're acting as if somebody who is placing bets on a sporting event where bets make advertisements all the time is going to keep him out of the game like it's the worst thing in the world. Everybody has their own opinions for those sides of things. Me personally, yeah, I think if you get DUIs, I think if you get a domestic abuse, I think you should be kicked out of it because there's supposed to be penalties that happen with this one. That's why there's a law. That's why there's court that goes into this thing. But for Sorsby, it's not so much of what he did as much as it's the integrity of the game. And T-Bone's absolutely correct. The problem isn't what Sorsby's doing. The problem is what he's allowed to get away with and stay in the game. There's nothing keeping, as T-Bone illustrated in the office earlier, a cornerback from letting a wide receiver run past him to catch a 60-yard touchdown because that's a part of his 12-leg parlay. There's nothing keeping a offensive lineman to let the defensive edge get past him for a sack because, hey, man, I had over a half a sack for you in today's game. That's the problem here. And as much as we can be upset with the NCAA said, you're not welcomed back. The courts were the one that said, hey, Sorsby, you're in on this one. And all of these teams are being like, well, he's allowed it. This gets corrected when the teams back away. But that goes back to what we're talking about. Texas Tech isn't going to tell Sorsby you can't play. I think in Mandel's piece, he was talking about Steve Sarkisian when he had his DUI, and they basically kicked him out for a year or something like that. If Texas Tech were into this, they'd say, oh, man, we can't do this. But they want to win. They want championships. And the Big 12 is probably going to be like, yeah, we'll think about banning this thing. They know where that money's coming from. It's coming from taking on Texas Tech.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the Big 12 because I think there's a chance. I don't know what the Big 12 could do because, as we're seeing, the NCAA is powerless. I don't know how much strength that the conferences by themselves will have because we got a text from the 314. Couldn't the NCAA just make Texas Tech ineligible for the playoffs? The answer to that is probably no. Because, I mean, if we're seeing that the
NCAA... Goes back to court if they do.
If the NCAA can't make Sorsby ineligible for gambling on his own team, you really think the NCAA has the power to block Texas Tech from the playoff? The answer to that is probably no, because what you just said, they would probably make that a ruling. Texas Tech would say, here's our lawyers, here's their number, let's go to court. And they would say, if a judge ruled Sorsby can play, why are we being ineligible for the college football playoff?
Exactly. The judge's ruling is the law here. The league doesn't have really anything on which to stand.
Exactly. So no, I mean, there's nothing that the NCAA can do. The next test is going to be what can the Big 12 do? Because the Big 12, outside of Texas Tech, was not thrilled with this ruling yesterday.
Yeah.
And there's been talks about maybe the Big 12 schools will kind of not play those games against Texas Tech. I'm skeptical that that's going to happen, but I'll be curious to see what the commissioner ultimately decides on it because I think they're meeting today. It's just there's so much uncertainty in a world that already had a bunch of uncertainty with the NCAA. I don't know where you go from here because what you mentioned about the parlay scenario, which I laid out in the office, if Sorsby's allowed to gamble on his own team and gamble on these games, everybody can, right? As long as they can sell the idea that this is an addiction and that they need help, then they can sell that to a judge because a precedent has been set.
I'm all for second chances. I do think it's important to give people the benefit of the doubt, but when you hide something for 4 years and you get away with it, yeah, that's an addiction. Yeah, you need to get that fixed. My problem isn't so much with Sorsby. My problem is just for the game. How do you watch college football now and don't treat it the same way you act as if the NFL is at times, right? People think the NFL is rigged when you think the outcome is scheduled for Pat Mahomes to win another championship or Tom Brady and Bill Belichick to keep winning. What's keeping you from wondering if college football is rigged? What's keeping you from wondering if this individual player had a bad game? Because he had a bet going into this one. And look, college football can't do anything about that. People are going to have their own opinions. But when more and more stories come out about this, there's no gray anymore. There's no black and white. There's no fine line. There's no looking at it. Because when a player is pointed at and saying, hey, man, we caught you gambling. Well, Brendan Sorsby got away with it. Now I can take it to a judge. Now I can get ruled that it's better for my overall health to stay in college athletics. I don't know, man. That's not an area that I want to be in when I'm in charge of college athletes moving forward.
Oh, he was suspended, though, for 2 games. Abilene Christian, Oregon State. What a joke of a slap on the wrist. That is the extent of the time that Brendan Sorsby is going to miss. That is the penalty being levied here against Texas Tech. Non-con games to begin the campaign. That's it. That's it.
From the 3-1-4 in 2023, an Iowa defensive captain self-reported for betting $10 on a women's team and had his career ended in college athletics. You know why he did versus a quarterback for Texas Tech? Winning games. And that's what it comes down to. So, once again, NCAA is in a rough spot with not a good look on them as we inch closer and closer to college athletics. If you want to join in on the conversation today, you could do so on our Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. You can also go over on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Coming up in 15 minutes, Derrick Goold, the Cardinals beat writer, is going to join us to talk about the series that's starting against the New York Mets tonight, and also a pending roster move of Victor Scott expected to be sent down to AAA, and Nathan Church joining the team, and that's what we'll get into next. What's the lessons that we can learn from the New York Mets struggles this season? And what's this lineup going to look like when Nathan Church is back in? We'll get on that next here on 101 ESPN.
You can now listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
It's 11:24. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Derrick Goold going to join us in about 10 minutes to talk about the Cardinals opening up a 3-game set against the New York Mets starting tonight out in New York. Now, the New York Mets were a team that I think a lot of people had questions about this offseason, right? They didn't re-sign Pete Alonso. They went out there and they made some wild trades, including getting Luis Robert, Marcus Semien. They signed Bo Bichette. They tried to make their team elite defensively, have really good pitching, and upgrade their bullpen, right? They spent money on Devin Williams. I forget they spent money on another bullpen arm.
Luke Weaver
Former as
Cardinal.
well. Yeah, there you go. Former Cardinal. And they walked away from Edwin Diaz. So a lot happened with the New York Mets, and it's resulted in them having the third worst record in the National League. They're 29-36. Now, they've been playing better lately. Their pitching is really good, at least on the starting side of things. Bullpen, maybe not so much, but still, this team is 29-36 with an expected win-loss record of 32-33, and right now looking like they're not going to be a playoff team. Is there any lessons that you take away from this New York Mets roster, T-Bone? Because for me, the first decision I look at with them is going away with something that has been successful in Pete Alonso and going for the shiny new toy in the free agency in Bo Bichette. Now, I think they did this because they wanted to be better defensively, and you're bringing in an infielder, Bo Bichette, who can play at a lot of different positions. They brought in Marcus Semien. They wanted to upgrade the defensive side and not be such the power slug offense that they were with Pete Alonso. But sometimes when you go after the shiny new toy, it doesn't work out the way you need it to be. And look, Pete Alonso's not setting the world on fire in Baltimore, but it was something that was comfortable what you had, and he knew what his role was on the team, and it was working for them. Now, didn't get them to a World Series, didn't really get them deep into the postseason. But you're an organization that's got plenty of deep pockets, and to go out there and just completely shift your identity as a team, to me, that's not the smartest decision to do when you have spent money on Juan Soto and all these other assets to try and win now.
Yeah, for me, it is if you're going to replace those guys. Because remember, I was saying at the time in the offseason when it was becoming clear that Stearns wanted to move on from some of that core, from Diaz, Nimmo, Alonso, McNeil, another one of those guys that falls into this. I said, okay, that makes sense if you're going to truly replace those guys and not try and do it on, like, the aggregate. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what they tried to do because, like, who's a better hitter, Alonso or Bo Bichette?
I'd say Alonso.
Yeah, I mean, Alonso's the 30-homer,
More importantly,
RBI
who's
guy.
the better middle-of-the-order bat?
Exactly.
Pete Alonso when you got Juan Soto in front of you.
And that's a better way for me to frame that question because Bo Bichette's a good player. I admit that. But Bo Bichette's not a true, like, guy that you look at and go, that guy makes me really afraid when he comes to the bat. He's a good player if he's kind of your Robin, as we talk about a lot, right? Alonso's different, man. I mean, he has pure power, 40 home run potential, guy that could be in the MVP conversation. And look, I get it. He doesn't play a premium position at first base. I would add this, and this is where I think they really lost their tune, was by going all in on defense. What is the hardest thing to do in baseball today? It's not field a ground ball or catch a fly ball or honestly even pitch, though that is difficult. The hardest thing to do in the modern game is hit. Mm-hmm. So why would I let a guy like Pete Alonso that can hit 40 home runs just walk out the door if I'm not going to replace him with a true middle-of-the-order bat like a Kyle Tucker?
Yeah.
I thought that was their pivot. We're going to go a little bit younger. We're going to go with a guy that plays more of a premier position in the outfield with Kyle Tucker. And they weren't willing to go that far with him. And then instead they said, we're going to do this with Jorge Polanco, who's been inconsistent through his career. We're going to go with Bo Bichette, who also has had some inconsistencies over the last handful of years. Let's not forget, it wasn't like he was always a above league average hitter in his time with the Toronto Blue Jays. He had a very weird year there, too. And then they said, let's go a little bit older and get a less premier position and another bad contract. We'll swap Nimmo for Semien, which made no sense at the time when they did it for me.
Nope.
The bullpen arm's like, look, I get it, right? Edwin Diaz, do you really want to pay for a closer? Not really. Then I wouldn't have paid two closers in Weaver and Devin Williams. So I think they just tried to I think Stearns tried to rebuild the Milwaukee way. Is, okay, we're going to be defense first, and we'll just kind of do the suppression style, right? We're going to suppress runs, and we're not going to worry about the offense. That'll kind of come to us. and it just hasn't. The offense is the second worst in Major League Baseball, and it's the whole reason why they've been sinking all season long.
Somebody said it's injuries that hurt this team. And I mean, look, there are injuries like Francisco Lindor's on the 10-day IL, Jorge Polanco's on the 10-day IL, Luis Robert is on the 10-day IL. By the way, Luis Robert has not been good this season when he was playing for them.
Another move that made no sense.
That
guy, guess what he's always done? Always been injured.
Yeah, well, and they also traded like a pretty decent prospect in Acuna's little brother to the Chicago White Sox for him. Francisco Lindor had played 24 games for him already this season, and he was hitting 226 with a 90 OPS plus.
And the engagement issues that you heard about coming out of the Big Apple, that's the thing. It seemed as if you were doing this song and dance kind of tango with Alonso for a couple of years. At some point, it almost seemed inevitable that he would be moved. But your pivot to go with the likes of a Semien, to beef up, the overall age of this roster. Guys, frankly, if you weren't receiving major contributions from a rookie like a Carson Bench, for example, think about what this offense would look like. Because, Soto has missed time. Lindor has missed considerable time. But again, it is symptomatic of what this front office has basically been doing for the past few years. Throwing money at problems, throwing contracts, throwing names out there without an idea for cohesion and cohesiveness as a group. Same thing.
Yeah, you're getting them at the right time, which is good for the Cardinals. But this is just a team that it's weird that they've gotten to this point. But to me, it's, man, you trying to change your entire identity in a matter of an offseason because it hasn't been working for you. I don't think the first plug I'm going to pull on that roster is kind of the face of the New York Mets, because when you think of the Mets, you think of Pete Alonso, and you take him out, you put Bo Bichette in, who's a really good player, but not a middle-of-the-order bat, and you say we're going to be all pitching and defense when your pitching isn't that elite. And you got injuries that you know are going to happen at some point with this one. On the other side of this, later on today, we're expected to hear the announcement of Nathan Church being activated and Victor Scott, of course, being optioned to AAA. We talked about that yesterday and the decision to put him down there. We'll talk more about it with Derrick Goold on the other side. But you're going to see two righties in this upcoming series against the New York Mets, at least for right now. You got Christian Scott and Freddie Peralta tonight. It's to be determined on Thursday, so we'll see who that one is. Where does Nathan Church fit into this lineup for you, T-Bone? Because I put my lineup together just in terms of he returning and playing center field, and I'm curious if our lineups align here.
Yeah, I think your top five is going to look like what it did on Sunday, so I think that is going to be the consistent. I think you go win at 6, which is what it was on Sunday, and then I think you create that lane of lefties. I think you probably go Crooks, Gorman, Church is the way that I would do it. I think I'd go Church in that 9 spot just because one doesn't carry a high on base, but if he does get on base, you've got some decent speed on in front of the guys at the top of the order. So I think I would hit him in that kind of double leadoff spot. I'll be curious if they want to break up that lane of lefties. You've got 3 lefties there at the bottom. If you go with Crooks, Gorman, Church, then when it flips over, it goes back to Wetherholt. They've been sticking with that, so I assume they will.
A lot of good pinch hitting opportunities, though, with Velasquez or Fermin for Gorman, Velasquez or Fermin for Crooks, and then Pajes can step in there.
Exactly. So I think that's why they're going to keep it there, so you can kind of play into that. I did wonder if maybe they would just flip one lefty up with Wynn. That way you kind of break it up, but I think they want to stick with that because of what you're talking about, those pinch hit situations.
Well, and I don't think you could flip the lefty with Wynn because then you got 3 lefties in a row of Burleson, Nootbaar, and whatever lefty you're putting there. So that's kind of how I had it. I had Wynn at 6, and then Gorman and Crooks, however you want to put it. I put Gorman before Crooks because you've got the pop, and then I had Church as the 9 hole, which I think is very fitting considering he's taking Victor Scott's spot. You put him in the same spot as Victor Scott was hitting, and it's basically like, hey, man, can you hold down the fort defensively, which we know you can, and can you get on base and be more of an effective batter in the 9-hole spot than what Victor Scott was? And that's the competition that they're creating.
And like I said yesterday, it's not even so much of like get on base and be like a above average hitter for the Cardinals. Just don't be an automatic out, right? I mean, that was the thing for Victor Scott was you just knew going up to the plate he didn't really have much of a chance, and that's what they're trying to cut back on. Now, what I'll be curious is how well is Nathan Church as a bunter, right? They've kind of really been using that. They've been trying to use that, and it hadn't been going well for Scott. We'll see if they abandon that with Nathan Church in that 9 spot.
We'll talk it over with Derrick Goold, our Cardinals insider, Post-Dispatch beat writer, who joins us next here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Next Friday, June 19th, the morning after, along with our radio friends from all 5 Hubbard stations, are set to team up to fill a truck for Operation Food Search. Stop by the station next Friday morning because TMA will be heading downstairs to broadcast live out front in our parking lot from 7 to 11 a.m., collecting canned goods and non-perishable food items. We'll be handing out 101 stickers, donuts from Donut Drive-In while supplies last, and everyone who stops by to donate will have a chance to enter to win a $500 grand prize. Now is a critical time to support as summers see a big drop in food donations, so get your food donations ready and bring them by next Friday from 7 to 11 a.m. with the morning after and 101 ESPN out in front of Hubbard St. Louis. That's 11647 Olive Boulevard in Creve Coeur. Get all the details at 101ESPN.com with support from Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Grab the new Famous Wrap for only $2.99 at Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. And the Happy Roof Company, building trust, helping families, giving back. Visit thehappyroof.com.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Cards quest for fifth straight hits Queens. Good morning, I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is supplied by Saliga Heating and Cooling. St. Louis carries a 4-game winning streak into tonight's series opener versus Carlos Mendoza's Mets. First pitch set for 6:10 p.m. at Citi Field as Dustin May locks horns with Freddie Peralta. New York just took 2 of 3 against San Diego. On Monday, Gotham's Hoops squad came up short. San Antonio fending off the Knicks 115-111. Victor Wembanyama claiming his first NBA Finals triumph. NHL action, 101 ESPN style. Resuming this evening, Vegas seized that 2-1 series lead over Carolina last weekend. Your Sports Center update was powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. No BK again today. He'll be back with us on Thursday as he continues his vacation out in New York, where the Cardinals will get set to take on the New York Mets this evening. And as we now head to our Collier and Thompson hotline and welcome in our weekly guest, our Cardinals insider, Cardinals beat writer for the Post-Dispatch. You can follow him on Twitter at DGould. Always a pleasure to catch up with Derrick Goold. Derrick, great to see you, man. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm clearly not in New York for the folks watching this on YouTube, so it's nice to get a bit of a break here. Daniel Guerrero's out in New York.
I was going to say, it's got to be good for Derrick to have a little bit of time down to get some errands done around the house.
Yeah, some honey-do list. My desk chair broke yesterday, so I'll be spending some time working on it.
See, you get that Post-it note out and you start crossing them off for the 3 days that you have. Well, Derrick, I want to invite you into the conversation T-Bone and I were just having because, of course, the Cardinals taking on this New York Mets team later on this evening. Do you think there's a lesson to be learned from what the New York Mets did this offseason that has hindered their success by having them as one of the worst teams in the National League?
Maybe so. I think there's a lesson there that the Cardinals are never one to follow and are never likely to follow, and that's the free spending aspect of it. Just to be blunt, I mean, I don't think the Cardinals are going to go, yeah, that's a model we thought about doing. And, well, we saw what the Mets did, and we're just not going to do it. I don't think that they ever were, like, in the auction house overspend model. I do think, like, to your topic, I do think one of the more fascinating things, and this goes back a couple decades, and, I mean, you get it really mostly at spring training, right? But the Cardinals and Mets have been so close in spring training for the entirety that I've covered the team and for a long time, right? The Mets are in Port St. Lucie, the Cardinals are in Jupiter. And so, since the late 90s when the Cardinals moved to Jupiter and that side of Florida, the Mets and the Cardinals have just kind of been, playing against each other. But they play against each other in spring when you start to see kind of a team form. But you also get to see, like, what a team prioritizes. And there was a time going back 15 years or so like that where the Cardinals had like this like assembly line and the roster still has it of guys who can play other positions and play them proficiently and find their way into the lineup either to spell somebody or to help give some versatility, some variety to the lineup, cover for an cover for an injury without like making errors, but just be reliable. You think back to even when Abe Nunez took over at third base for Scott Rowland, it's like, well, there's no chance, right, that Abe Nunez is going to take it. And then Abe Nunez goes out and he plays a serviceable third base. Or Aaron Miles taking over at shortstop. Where'd that come from, right? But you see like in spring where teams work on this or explore this, or at least the Cardinals do. And I remember talking to someone with the Mets going, where do they get all these guys who can play all these positions? We can't find one. And I looked at them they make them in Jupiter. They practice this. Like, this is something that they do. And you'd think like the Mets would pick up on that after all the years, especially if a baseball writer did. So I always find the Mets fascinating in that regard because we get to see them as they try to stop being the Mets every spring. And then every April, they're still the Mets. It's just fascinating.
It's like the opposite effect. Like they're still the Mets. Just like every season, the Brewers are still the Brewers, but it's the good side of the Brewers where it's like, how do they keep finding ways to do this with their pitchers?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, or like folks used to talk about the Cardinals' devil magic.
Yeah.
How do they find these guys like a Ryan Ludwig, or how do they find these players that are overlooked or moved on from other teams and then have them excel? I mean, like, look, the Mets were a dynamite team under, with David Wright and Cliff Floyd and Carlos Beltran there and everything like that. And you just wonder if it took like some guys who weren't buying into the Mets as opposed to who were bought to be part of the Mets to kind of fix the Mets. I mean, David Wright grew up as a Met, and if anything, folks should look back and go, man, what an influence and impact and great player he was before injury kind of bogged him down. But he changed the Mets while he was there, right? I mean, look at how they are now. It's just, they're a very confusing team that just can't stop being themselves. It's just odd. They just can't jolt themselves out of, it's a little bit like the Cubs before they kind of, built what they did in the mid 2010s, right? Where they would talk about, well, that's so Cub, or that's a Cub thing or something like that. And they'd almost be like, oh yeah, overthrow the cutoff man. Oh man, that's so Cub. And they just couldn't get out of their way. And there's actually something that early on I talked to Theo Epstein about, where he said that they needed to reclaim that phrase and start saying that's so Cub is a good thing. Like, you hit the cutoff man, you take the extra base. It seems like the Mets need some of that, some kind of something to clean out the air of the culture that they just can't get through.
Derrick, looking at this series with the Mets as we're talking about them, the Cardinals are going to insert Dobbins into the rotation as he's going to start on Wednesday. I know we talked to you about him last week on the show. I'm curious if things have changed in the way that the Cardinals are going to approach using him because of how effective he has been in his 2 appearances with the Cardinals since getting recalled, and the fact that they've only got one healthy bullpen option that's kind of on the 40-man that's pitching, that's been in the minors, and Chris Roycroft with Fernandez going down on the IL. I'm curious, do they see this as it's going to be this spot start and then he goes down, or do you think he's going to be here still for another extended stretch?
So it couldn't have worked out better for them with his first 2 appearances. They kind of wanted to have these piggyback appearances. They even said the day that they wanted to have them.
And I think we lost Derrick there. Of course, perfect timing, too. When we get past all the Mets stuff, that's what Derrick Goold. So we'll see if we catch back up with Derrick. Derrick, do we got you?
I think so.
All right, there we go. We got you. Sorry, we lost you right at the beginning of your answer.
Oh, man, it was a great one. Let me try to see if I can recreate it.
All right, take 2.
Okay. That was a dress rehearsal. Always, the show's always better. I think the schedule for Dobbins couldn't have worked out better for them, right? They assigned days, even thought of it as a piggyback, and they were like, okay, the game played out the way they wanted it to for that first professional save, 3 2/3 innings, one run. Then the next time out, 5 innings, 1 run. I mean, they even got him to his pitch count. So they were very fortunate in that. The other benefit of that is he pitched exceptional, right? But they have always kind of presented this as a 3-week plan coming out of a off days about 10 days ago. They kind of hatched this as okay, getting Dobbins in, getting the break for the bullpen, what role he could have in that, and then as they made sure that they kept him on his starters kind of workload and that pitch count, could they get effectiveness? And then also, regardless of that effectiveness, when to insert him into the rotation. So it played out great for them. To your question about is he pitching on an egg timer? Is the pumpkin about to come back at midnight and him go back to Memphis? No. This is all part of the bigger kind of they've outlined it as kind of a 3-week plan. They haven't offered all the details of it, but they have said from the start that Dobbins is a starter for them. They plan to get him starts, plural, and that this is more of a McGreevy type role than a Steven Matz role. right? Okay, so this is not like a swing back and forth. This is a get him in as the sixth starter, see how this goes, consider maybe having him start some, and then you have another starter piggyback after him. So this is going to be fluid for a bit, but it's not a, hey man, thanks for coming, and the Cardinals already have purchased his ticket back to Memphis on Friday when they go to Minnesota. That doesn't seem like how this is playing out, and he's pitched well enough to make sure that they didn't.
Do you think, Derrick, that there's a chance that he could unseat somebody in that rotation as the season kind of progresses?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different directions this could go. Coming into the year, it was Dobbins and Fitz who were going to be kind of used in this de facto sixth starter, but be prepared for moving into the rotation for the second half of the season after the Cardinals traded Dustin May. So that's like still in play, right? As long as the Cardinals will entertain offers on Dustin May, and they will, right? If he's pitching well, and regardless of where they are in the standings, they probably will at least see what they can get for him, because the future, is the focus, and the plan is to accumulate talent. And if another team is willing to hand over, a mother load of talent for Dustin May, they'll do that. I almost said Comstock load, which would have been like a real history lesson for the Buffs out there, but. I don't know. Like AP US history came flooding back,
as it usually does.
Yeah, no, it does at the weirdest times too. But the idea that like if they could get a return for them, then they'd have these guys ready to go in, and that is very much how like Dobbins mirrors McGreevy of a year ago. Now, does it have to wait for the trade deadline to happen? Not at all. No, that's not what's happening here. They're not going to slow play this dress rehearsal for the rotation out over the next 7 weeks. This is Dobbins like moving into the rotation, and how long he stays. Part of it will be performance. Of course, it'll be performance, right? But part of it is also schedule. Part of it is also how taxing it is on the bullpen here.
You made reference there, Derrick, to the trade deadline and then potentially listening on Dustin May. I know we're 2 months out, just a little under 2 months out from the trade deadline, but there is starting to become a little bit of buzz towards that. I'm curious, have you heard from your conversation with people around the club where they kind of stand right now, as they've been a bit of a surprise as buyers or sellers?
I've talked with Chaim Bloom directly about this, and others as well. Chaim Bloom that told me there in Sacramento when we were talking about it, that like he hopes that he has to make difficult and creative decisions, but he's not going to, veer wildly off the interstate that they've set forth as their direction for the season. He's not looking at this contention as an exit ramp to become more urgent for the now. If anything, it will require creativity. It will require some, just opportunism, right? When looking at the trade deadline, but their goals remain steadfast. They want to get playing time for young players. They want to come out of this season with a better idea of who their core is, and yes, who their core is not. And they want to accumulate talent for the depth chart in the minor leagues. This is something that they just have made such a priority. You look at all their moves over the last year, you look at their planned moves, even some of their contracts that they signed, like Brian Stanek, Dustin May. These are guys that came here to help them, yes, but also have favorable roles and could have favorable performance, and definitely have favorable contracts to be moved at the deadline. So, they've geared up for this idea, and there is still a way for them to thread that needle where they can do both things. But the urgent move where they're trading from their future to get for the now, they want to be in position to do that when they think they can make noise in October, not when they think they can slip into October.
And my question there could be moot because they could eventually fall out of it like they did last year. And that kind of leads into my next question, because when you look at the Cardinals through 63 games, they are 35-28. They were 35-28 at this point last season through 63 games. And as I made reference to, then they fell apart in July when they went through a bit of a losing skid and then ultimately became sellers. Do you think that this year is different, Derrick? And do you get a sense that the Cardinals think that this year is a little bit different with the way this roster is constructed?
The Cardinals internally feel this is different, meaning particularly in the clubhouse, the players feel this is different, for a lot of different reasons. One, the style of play to how free they are from expectations. Last year's team still had the gravity of being the classic Cardinals, kind of the Cardinals we've seen for the last, generation here, where they were still expected to win and yet didn't really recognize themselves at times on the field, right? They weren't really playing like a contender. They had a record that said they were above 500, but man, there were guys searching, Nolan Arenado being such a big part of that lineup, but also struggling individually. The empty crowds. I mean, you just think about the whole, let's use the current verb or the description, not verb, the current description. Think about the whole vibes at the ballpark 12 months ago. Ain't like they are now.
No.
I mean, not at all.
Night and day.
I'm watching, then same with the team internally. And so they feel that this is different, the same record, but a different style of play. They feel like they just have more going for them while playing with less expectations going into this season. Now, I think you ask a really interesting question as to, when does the calendar start showing and when does that expectation arrive? I mean, I think you probably argue this is the series where it does that, right? You go in to Queens and you face the Mets, who are supposed to be so much better than they are, and say the Mets sweep this series, right? Then the Cardinals go, well, yeah, of course. I mean, they have a payroll roughly 72 times the size of us. Like Juan Soto in his couch has our payroll, right? That's what you're thinking, right? And you're like, okay, of course they should win 3 in a row. If the Cardinals go in there and win the series, go 2-3, they're like, you know what, man, that's an adorable payroll you have, but it still comes down to style of play and talent, and we've got that to contend. And I really think this is a fascinating series for that, because if they do that and come out of there, how many more series are they going to go into where they're now the favorite? We haven't really talked like that about them that way. Even when the Reds come to town, I don't think folks talk about man, the Cardinals are the favorite to win the series, or they should be expected to win the series. At some point in time, and it's going to happen soon, fans and media, all of us are going to go, well, they should win this series. They should win this series. They're the better team. They're not the surprise team anymore. They're the better team. And I'm eager to see what this young team does with those expectations.
100% with that. Derek, final one I wanted to ask you about, and we'll maybe get the news later on today, but it's been reported that Victor Scott's not with the team. Nathan Church is expected to join the team in New York. Just from your perspective and conversations, what are they going to want Victor Scott to really hone in on if he's headed to AAA?
Yeah, he is. So he is going to AAA. I don't know when the official, but he's going to be optioned. It may not have passed the transaction wire yet, but he's going to be optioned. Nathan Church is going to be the center fielder, for the Cardinals. He's healthy, ready to go, coming out of his rehab assignment. Very quick rehab assignment, but he didn't miss much time. So that is going to happen. I've talked to multiple people who have described it that way, and last I actually talked about it as if it had been completed yet. I just don't know if it's gone final on the transaction. So just to give you guys the update there. What does he work on it's a great question. He's just got to be more consistent at the plate with the strides that he made in this offseason. There's just a whole lot. I talked to Victor Scott this winter and again during spring, and he had a really interesting way of describing it. He's like, look, I need to do everything I can to not put the ball into a 4-3. That's the ground out I can't outrun. And so often he's going to be pitched that way, obviously, because teams know it. And so often this season, how you've seen him do 4-3, 4-3, 4-3, a lot of pull side grounders for him. And then when he does get the ball to the opposite side, it's more of a flare or fly out and everything like that. It's when he is able to kind of find that middle spot where it's line drives to left, ground balls to left, line drives up the middle, things that, infield hits that he can outrun, line drives that he can get over, or even split the gap and then go for 2 or 3. That's where he's got to get. And that's a balance of a swing. That's being responsive to how he's being attacked. I think with the biggest thing for him, we talk about what guys are prescribed to. Thomas Saggese is in Memphis to get playing time, to get rhythm, to get that, because his bat is far better than what he was like at the major league. You could see it. If you watched Thomas Saggese in games, you would go, man, this guy has more ability to hit than is coming out in these games. He just looks off. He's there to get playing time, so he's not. Victor Scott is going to Memphis to get confidence to get results, to get steals, to accumulate hits, to get like some kind of tangible positive benefit to the changes he's made, as opposed to just feeling like he's spinning deeper into kind of a shallow batting average here and really struggling. I think that's probably the most important thing, is he's gone to Memphis to get confidence.
Great breakdown, Derrick Goold, man. Always appreciate you joining us every Tuesday. Enjoy your few days off. Get that honey-do list finished, and we'll keep track of your work over on the Post-Dispatch, and we'll talk next Tuesday.
I think the big story here is my office chair survived the interview, so that we didn't have like a moment on YouTube where it just came completely apart.
I'll be honest, Derek, I would have had to clip it if it broke.
Yeah, that would have been the headline.
Yeah, as would I. I mean, I was braced for it. I was literally braced for it.
That's great. Derrick, always great stuff, man. Enjoy the time off.
Have a great weekend.
There you go, Derrick Goold. You can find his work over on the Post-Dispatch, and of course follow him on X at @DGould. So a lot of really good stuff there. Hunter Dobbins, trade deadline, Victor Scott. We went long with Derrick. We're not going to shortchange you on questions and answers, so let's double our break here, Bradford. And when we come back on the other side, we'll get to questions and answers. Send them over to our Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. Questions and answers next here on 101 ESPN.
The Stanley Cup Finals are on ESPN tonight. Golden Knights and Hurricanes. Pregame at 6:30. Puck drop at 7. The NHL playoffs are on 101 ESPN.
Kerry Davis, and you can join me and 101 ESPN this Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Paymore in Baldwin. New to the St. Louis area, Paymore is a great way to sell, recycle, and buy electronics. Plus, enter to win a brand new PS5. Paymore is now open with 2 locations in Baldwin and Maplewood. You can check out the Baldwin location located at 15367 Manchester Road this Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. with me, CD, and 101 ESPN. Get all the details at 101ESPN.com.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line. You can join in over there for questions and answers, or the worst time to get a sneeze ever.
I wondered what happened. I was scrolling Twitter over here, and I just heard silence.
The moment we came back, I'm like, oh, God, I feel it. And it's like, can you ever power through a sneeze? And there was no powering through that sneeze. That sucked. Anyway, you could go over to our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL and jump in on the Graveyard Chat, where you can send your question on that one. As we'll get the questions and answers here, we went longer with Derrick Goold, so we'll carry it over into this segment. So let's start with this from the 314, a follow-up on Derrick Goold. Does hearing Derrick talk about their plan with Hunter Dobbins give you more faith that he could bump somebody out of the rotation? I don't know if it gives me more faith. It's just, it kind of confirms what I believe, that they see him as a starter. They've seen what he's done the last 2 games, and they say, this guy might be ready. I think there's a real chance he could knock somebody out of that rotation. Now, maybe it solves itself. Maybe an injury flares up and somebody needs some time off, which is totally fine. But if everything keeps going the way this is and everyone stays healthy, I can absolutely see a scenario where Kyle Leahy maybe gets pushed to the bullpen.
Yeah, it makes me intrigued because I think there's a chance, but I don't know who they want to piggyback with him then, right? Like, I mean, he mentioned it, like they've got this plan to where they're going to have him start on on Thursday, and then they'll kind of go from there. I'm fascinated to see how it evolves.
What if they do it with Leahy? What if they flip the roles?
That's kind of what I wonder if they would do, because I don't think they would do it with Libby.
No, although Libby really can't get beyond 4 or 5 innings for him.
Yeah, but I think you can get by with that if you're 5 and dive. With Leahy, he's used to coming out of the bullpen. Not that Libby's not, but I think Leahy's been the
Libby hasn't done it longer
of the group, I would say.
Leahy did it last year.
And Palante's out of the question altogether.
Palante's
been good. May's out of the question. McGreevy's out of the question.
Yeah, so I find it fascinating what they're going to do, because not only do they, I mean, Derrick told us this, I think, last week, that, hey, look, they're high on Dobbins. Well, not only are they high on Dobbins has come up here and been very good. He has shoved. So I'm fascinated. It does make me think that they're going to do it, but I don't think it means sending somebody down to the minors. I think it's what Derrick described, which is, okay, maybe you just flip it. Maybe Dobbins starts the game, then Leahy comes out of the bullpen and piggybacks with him.
Yeah, because, where does ultimately Leahy max out this year? He's projected to reach 150 innings. I think we all know in his first full season of starting, he's not approaching 150 innings.
Yeah, and I mean, people don't like this phrase, but that's just as good as the trade is. Adding a guy like that into your bullpen, depending on what he looks like. He's got the experience. He can go deeper into games for you. He's very effective 1 or 2 times through the lineup. So that's a perfect piece to have in a long man option if you get towards the postseason. From the 314, agree or disagree, you signed Dustin May to an extension because he would be a great veteran presence for our young pitchers coming up. Look, I'm not going to make a decision on signing a guy because he's a great veteran presence for my younger players.
What? You're a big clubhouse guy.
In hockey, I absolutely am. In baseball, I feel like it's very different.
I think you either have to be all in on all sports or out on all sports.
I just think baseball's a very individualized sport. Pitchers work on things themselves. You have a lot of different instructors. Hockey is all about what the guy next to you is willing to do. And if you're not tight with the guy that you're on the ice with, things can go astray. I don't think that's the same in baseball. And I also think the Blues are in a different position. I think the Blues are kind of in that, look, we're trying to win and we don't know where we're at. They need better vibes and better clubhouse. That's why we've been talking about Kyrou for the longest time. I don't feel that same way for the Cardinals. I think Dustin May would be a very good piece to keep on the roster because he is a guy who can eat innings and allow your younger players to continue to develop. I don't think I'm signing an extension because he provides good vibes for my guys in the clubhouse. Plus, if he's a desired commodity, like Derek said, I think you explore trading him regardless of how well he's pitching.
Yeah, I would not do a contract extension with him. Now, I'm open-minded to hanging on to him because you don't get the value for him at the deadline, and then you pick up your end of the mutual option. If he declines it, then you put the qualifying offer on him, and if he goes a separate ways, you get a pick for him. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. I'm more of a year-to-year basis with it. I would not do a quote-unquote long-term deal, even though I think it'd only be like a 3-4 year deal, just because I want to see him stay healthy for multiple seasons, since that's been kind of the bugaboo for him. So that's why I wouldn't do it. I believe that the locker room stuff doesn't matter in hockey and in baseball, so I'm not signing a guy based on that. I think it's, as we've seen, this... I mean, you can look at the position players compared to the pitchers here real quick, but the position players don't really have that veteran presence to go to, and they've been fine, right?
Yeah.
They aren't like screaming, we need someone to go talk to. I don't know how to get ready for a game. No, they're fine. The pitchers would be fine if they don't have a veteran in that rotation, so I would not do an extension with Dustin May.
I'm totally with you. You have to talk about year-to-year parameters when it comes to Dustin May because, to that end, guys, he's already reached the third highest number of frames in a single season. That's right, in 66. And this year, 12 starts, because in Los Angeles, he reached 100, a grand total of one time. And then last season in the stints combined with the Dodgers as well as the Red Sox. Because of the durability issue, I can't think beyond this season. But would I entertain actually having him stay here for the rest of the ride? Absolutely, and then play it out.
From Vizzini on the Air Comfort Service text line, has been said that this next year's hockey draft is deeper than this year. If there was a player that dropped down to 11 and one of the top 10 players wanted to switch this year's ticket for next year, do you think the Blues would do it? Okay, that was a lot. So if they want a player at 11 and another team came calling and said, we'll trade you next year's first round pick for your 11th pick, would you do it? If I'm understanding that correctly, there's no chance in hell. I haven't heard next year's draft is deeper. I've heard next year is very top heavy. I heard next year is there's about two players that are like these guys are going top two. I think it's Alexis Joseph and Landon DuPont. And then after that, it takes off a tier. So no, there's 11's not going anywhere unless it makes me better right now. So there's no way I'm trading any of those.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think they would move down from 11. I think the only reason you don't see the Blues take 11 is either A, they trade it to go get NHL help now, or they trade it to move up. I don't think they're going to be looking for a pick for next year because I'm with you. I've not heard anything that says next year's class is deep. We already know that this year's class is, so I don't think they're making that move.
And by the way, 314 said, but guys, they held on to Waino for a veteran presence. No, they held on to Waino because he sells tickets. It was a Hall of Famer or a borderline Hall of Famer, a no doubt Cardinals Hall of Famer who was finishing his career with the Cardinals.
There was a mix of everything in there. One, he sells tickets. Two, sure, you can say he was a veteran presence, which is a fair one since he had been there. And at the time, they were in that Cardinals way mantra. So, okay, I see how you connect the dots there. And the third thing, too, is I know he had that weird kind of in-between in the middle part of the career. He was pretty good at his old age, outside that final year where it just wasn't there for him.
Second to last year, he was great for him.
Yeah. So I think it was a little bit of a combination of all of them.
All right, let's get to two more here. Well, from the 314, Alex, got to hear your thoughts on the Oilers potentially hiring Mike Babcock. For those that haven't heard it, Pierre LeBrun has been reporting that, like, hey, this sounds like it's a real thing. Bob Stauffer, who people that don't know, he's a broadcaster for the Edmonton Oilers, very in tune with people that make decisions within the Edmonton Oilers, basically said, from his understanding, Mike Babcock is their guy. From ownership to front office to management, this is the guy that they prefer. I think it's a terrible decision. This guy has not coached in 6 years. Even longer than that, actually, I think, because the last time he coached was with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He didn't even get to keep his job with the Blue Jackets. He didn't even coach a preseason game with the Blue Jackets because of the phone incident that took place. To me, and look, you're crazy if you think Connor McDavid hasn't had a say in this. Connor McDavid's making the decision. They're asking him to decide on this, not just making the decision for him. To me, this is chasing a championship from a guy's resume. This guy has not had success since he was a part of the Detroit Red Wings, and that team had like 5 Hall of Famers on it. I don't think this is the same as Joel Quenneville, because Joel Quenneville was still successful prior to him stepping away from the game because of his Blackhawks incident. This guy was not successful in Toronto. He barely made it out of the first round. He missed the playoffs once. There are so many better options for the Edmonton Oilers to hire. But to me, you're going name recognition because you got to make yourself look as good as possible in this year, because if you're not, Connor McDavid's walking.
Yeah, I can't believe that they're down this path. I know they wanted to add a little bit more grit to their coach from their head coach. I think their true target is the guy from Vegas that got fired in Bruce Cassidy, but doesn't sound like they're going to let him go anywhere.
And that was a report also that it sounds like that the noise around that is not going away. Vegas is not going to allow him to sign with the Edmonton Oilers.
I think this is hockey culture. NHL clearly doesn't care about scandals around coaches. I mean, I think there's a fair argument Quenneville shouldn't still be in the league.
There's some guys,
Babcock, I don't think should be in the league because of what happened the last time around.
There's some guys, though, that have been blackballed. Like Bill Peters when he was with the Calgary Flames, and I think he was the one that had that bullying and racism incident. He has been kicked out of the league and has not had a chance to return. So there are some guys that get blackballed and don't get the chance to come back. Sure, that style may work, not to the way that Mike Babcock. Like John Tortorella is the style that works.
I don't think it works anymore. I mean, there's a reason Tortorella has only been there at a team for 2 years minimum.
He basically ended the Detroit Red Wings run. Like, all of those guys despised playing for him and ruined a couple of players' careers. Like, go look at Johan Franzen's career. That guy was a beast in the 2008-2009 season, but because of injuries, Mike Babcock basically tried to force him to keep playing through it, and his career ended early.
Yeah, think about how the last few seasons went in Motown. We understand the heights, obviously, that Detroit reached early on, but care to hazard a guess, Alex, as to the last time a Mike Babcock coached team finished higher than third in its division?
I want to say 2009.
Close enough. 2010-11. What does that tell you? Enough said.
Yeah, I had Datsuk and Zetterberg and Lidstrom on that team still, so pretty damn good team with that one. So final one, and I know we got to go on this. Somebody asked about the mock draft that The Athletic put together. Look, in my opinion, that mock draft, for those that may have missed it on The Athletic, Pronman and Wheeler got the Blues drafting Ty Lawrence at 11 and Malte Gustafsson at 15. That's the best case scenario, and I think I'm starting to change my tune on this team drafting all three of their picks, because I don't think you have the ammunition to go trade for the second overall pick. So if you can get one of Ty Lawrence or Vijay Bjork in this draft, if you can get yourself a defenseman of Gustafsson or Ryan Lynn in the 11 and 15 pick, I think you're in a really good spot that you draft that and put your team up for some success moving forward. So we'll see kind of how it continues to go, though, because there will be more and more noise between now and the first night of the draft. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get to bet it or forget it. You send us your scenario. We'll tell you if we are going to bet it or forget it. But coming up next, the season from last year up to this point to this year are eerily similar in some of the numbers that Bernie Miklasz put together. Does this season feel like it's going to be any different than how last year's season went? We'll discuss that next here on 101 ESPN.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care, the company that has been making people comfortable since 1926. And when it comes to this time of the year, you know that humidity is awful. It's going to feel like 95 degrees outside in the next couple of days. Get your HVAC system in the proper position, and you're still kind of on that back end before the season gets crazy for HVAC companies, specifically Classic Air Care. So if you're looking to purchase a new HVAC system, now's the time to give them a call. They've got financing options, no payment, no interest for 12 months on a new HVAC system. And here's the coolest thing about it. You don't even have to have one of their technicians come out. They've got a really cool tool on their website, classicaircare.com. You go on, you answer 3 simple questions. You will get a quote for what a HVAC system will cost on the comfort of your website browser. So you could do all of that at home. You get 5-star customer service. You get knowledge from technicians that have been doing this for 30 plus years. Check out their maintenance agreement. It's something that is really good for you. Classic Air Care is out to take care of you and your family. Call them today or schedule online. Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario, BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. It's 12:23. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. So Bernie Miklasz had a piece on Redbird Review talking about the Cardinals' position 63 games into this season. It's the same record as they were last year, 35-28. Now, the difference is some of the numbers in terms of how they're performing. Like last season for the Cardinals offense through 63 games. 7th in runs, tied for 4th in batting average, 7th in on-base percentage, 12th in slug, 10th in on-base or OPS. This season, they actually rank worse. 17th in runs, 14th in batting average, 11th in on-base, 19th in slug, 15th in OPS. The rotation, 17th in ERA, 9th in FIP, 25th in strikeout percentage. Doesn't surprise me. Average against, tied for 17th, and the whip was 11th with 6th quality starts. 12th in ERA, 20th FIP, 26th in strikeout, 27th in average against, 23rd in whip, 14th in quality starts. And the bullpen is slightly worse, but kind of right around the same territory in terms of ERA, FIP, and strikeout percentage. Needless to say, they essentially look like the same team. They had better offense through 63 games last year, and now they have a slightly uptick in pitching this year versus last year. But it all results, T-Bone, in 35-28. So you asked me in the office, is this season going to be different from how last year ended? And if I'm not mistaken, the month of June was where the shoe really dropped for this Cardinals team. That's where
July.
Was it July? I thought it was June.
In June, they end up with that sweep in Cleveland. Remember, they had, I think it was Sonny Gray goes the distance, throws a Maddox. They sweep the Guardians and we're riding high. And then the last day of June going into July is when they got swept in Pittsburgh and didn't score a single run, and that's when everything just fell apart for the Cardinals.
So kind of down on that one. That makes a lot more sense in terms of this season and why you ask this question, because the month of July to me is going to be brutal for this Cardinals team. You've got Atlanta twice, you've got Milwaukee, you've got Arizona. Like, you've got a tough schedule in the month of July. You can give yourself some grace, some wiggle room in this. To me, though, when you ask the question, is this season going to be different from last year? Maybe the outcome or the result of the season is the same. To me, they're night and day different, because you have Jordan Walker performing and you have J.J. Wetherholt being unraveled, and you've got a pipeline that's developing. Maybe the season ends where you miss the playoffs. I don't know if you're going to miss it by a lot of games, because I think the National League is going to keep you in the conversation. But this season feels different from last year, because you're going to end it with confidence of, hey, Jordan Walker is a real piece to build around. We talked about him having 40 home runs and 20 stolen bases at the end of this season. J.J. Wetherholt might win Rookie of the Year, and also gives you the confidence of this dude could be incredible for the Cardinals. You've got the complementary pieces and your pitching pipeline. By the end of the season, we could be realistically talking about 3 or 4 more pitchers that have a chance to make the rotation next year out of training camp. To me, that's why this season will be different, because last year ended and there was zero hope. Walker was bad. Sure, you had Wetherholt, but you had no idea what it looked like. The pitching gave you zero confidence. You knew that the team was going to look bad. This season, boy, it could end with you missing the playoffs, and I could feel great about the direction of the Cardinals. So I don't care what they look like and how similar they are, and if July is bad this year, this team is set up in a much better position than last season's.
Yeah, I think there's like 3 main reasons why I feel like this season's going to go different from last year. And the first one, you made reference to it, is they've got an MVP candidate in the middle of their lineup in Jordan Walker. They didn't have that last year. You know, you think back to Brendan Donovan was playing well at this point of the season. They had Wilson Contreras, who was fine at this point, but Nolan Arenado wasn't hitting, as Derek made reference to when I asked him about this earlier today. And that was a big thing for the Cardinals, because at this point in the year, he was their cleanup hitter, and he just was not performing. And you could see by watching Nolan Arenado, this wasn't going to get right? They were trying to sell it that, okay, he's going to figure it out. He's just working on timing, or he's working on pulling the ball a little bit more. And it was, man, this is clearly Arenado's just breached that age curve, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not going to get better from here. I have no concerns of Jordan Walker falling off of a cliff. So that's the first reason. The second reason also ties into the offense as a whole. They've been fine and sustainable without being healthy so far this year. You think back to last year, Donovan eventually gets hurt, but they were healthy to start off the season last year with their construction of the lineup. This year, how often have we been talking about, boy, when Newbar gets back, he's going to give a boost to this lineup. And we saw it through the first 3 games against the Cincinnati Reds. Now you're adding Nathan Church back into, as I said earlier, hopefully is not a matter of this guy is going to be above league average offensively, but can he not be an automatic out like Victor Scott was for the bottom part of your order? And at some point, hopefully, fingers crossed, Urias will eventually be back after the setback and help you out at third base. And then the other reason, and the third and final reason for this, is I just feel more confident in the rotation. Like, think back to last year's rotation at this point, and I'm looking at the numbers here.
Hold on, let it soak in for a minute that you said that, because we disagreed with BK at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
We disagreed with it.
And the rotation's just been better than I was expecting.
Yeah,
and
me
some
too.
guys, they go through spurts, right?
Yeah.
Like Libby is the just kind of the eye to the beholder, right?
Yeah.
At times he looks really good with swing and miss, but then at other times you like watch him against the Reds, you're like,
to me, we're really talking about Dustin May and Michael McGreevy, because as great as it feels, Palante's.
Well, I think Palante's another one here.
I feel like I regress. I feel like he still makes me worried that regression could come at some point.
Maybe, but I don't think it's significant regression. Like, I think the guy with most regression coming is McGreevy, just because I don't think he's a sub-3 ERA. He's probably more of a 4 ERA
He
guy
just
with the way
has
he
such a
pitches to
deep
contact.
pitch arsenal that I feel like benefits him, to where Palante has like 4 pitches.
Yeah, but McGreevy pitches to so much contact even with 6 pitches that I'm not sure it matters.
Makes
But
sense.
maybe I'll be proven wrong there. But the reason I bring up the rotation is because you look back at it last year, and at the time, Eric Fetty had a 3.82 ERA at this point in the season. But we all knew that was fraudulent. Because remember, he was walking the world. His expected ERA was 5.47. You look at Miles Michaelis, and Miles Michaelis was at a 3.96 ERA. His expected was a 4.59. And you would watch him pitch and go, oh, please just get him out as soon as humanly possible. And then Palante was really bad last year. At this point in the year, he had a 4.91 ERA. They just didn't have good answers in the rotation, and we all knew it was going to come crumbling down. I think everybody in the rotation, for the most part, outside maybe McGreevy, has been pitching to expectations so far this year, to where I don't see it getting any worse.
Yeah, basically so far they are winning quite literally with the strength in numbers. Now, I will readily admit, last season I was not exactly the staunch #1 avid Sonny Gray supporter. But here is one reason as to why maybe I can envision some qualms down the stretch. The sustainability of the offense, I am on board with it. I have been, frankly, since the beginning of the season. But do you really have that one guy in the rotation in whom you can rely down the stretch? I'm not talking about being able to come together with the collective results. I think McGreevy, the stuff, as you saw over the course of the weekend, too, if he's keeping it down, if he's utilizing that sinker effectively, he's a guy you can trust near the front end of your rotation. But you don't necessarily have that one guy so far. It hasn't been proven so far to carry you through the stretches later on in the season. Again, I'm not saying that Sonny Gray was some undisputed ace. He wasn't last season for your team, but you rolled him out there and you expected him during the stretch run, during a would-be pennant run, to compete against the best of the best in other rotations.
I think Dustin May's that.
Is he that guy?
I think so.
If he's healthy.
He's got to stay healthy, but
Yeah.
I mean, everything he's shown right now, he's able to stay healthy.
Outside his first 2 starts of the year, he's been that guy.
He's been the most consistent pitcher for you. He's got swing and miss stuff. He's got the ability to go deep. Now, when something goes wrong, I've seen him break a couple of times, but I don't think that's anything to be worried about. Now, he's not Tarek Skubal. He's not Mizorowski. He's not any of those guys. But yeah, I think he's a stopper for you, that if things are going bad, you look at him and say he could fix it. And I do think McGreevy has some of that.
But
the regression is
tell you
what
McGreevy is that. Now, maybe regression never comes from McGreevy.
Pitch to contact always worries me to be a stopper. That's just my biggest
you
thing.
and me both.
So and I totally get it. So all of these conversations lead me to ask this: is there one intrusive thought that still floats in your mind? And it sounds like for all 3 of us, it's the pitching.
It is.
But if I were to go different, 5 through 9 is a concern. Now, you got Lars Nootbaar back, but if you look at the offensive numbers last year versus this year, they were better last year offensively. Now, the pitching was awful, so if your pitching's better, maybe a slight downtick in offense, you do need more than 4 guys to carry you. Now, maybe Lars Nootbaar is it, but as we've seen, if Walker goes into a small slump, if Wetherholt goes into a slump, and even if a guy like Lars Nootbaar goes into a little bit of a slump, you can't turn and rely on Wynn, Fermin, Torres, Gorman to pull you out of it. And that would be somewhat of a concern.
Yeah, mine would be on the bullpen, right? And we were talking about the rotation, and I think there's a little regression there, but the bullpen would be the one that would concern me, and the reason for that is because we've seen O'Brien's been a little bit shaky here of late. And if O'Brien starts to regress, now I have some questions of, okay, who are you trying to get to in that 9th inning? And add on top of that, though Stanek's been very good, we've seen what a bad month from Ryan Stanek looks like. It's not pretty. And he's still walking the world in his appearances. He's striking out the world, but he's still walking the world and putting guys on base. There's a chance that there's a month or two coming where you see him regress back to the very beginning of the month, and then it becomes, okay, if I just pulled out O'Brien and Stanek from the guys that are pitching well, that bullpen becomes very thin. Now, I think you could argue that that is typical of any bullpen, but that would be more of my concern, because I think with Nootbaar being back, I would have had the same kind of intrusive thought that you had with the offense prior to Nootbaar coming back. Now that Nootbaar's back, if one guy goes cold in the lineup like Ivan Herrera has been here over the last 15-ish games, I don't think it's going to be as noticeable as long as Nootbaar is there. When Nootbaar was gone and you lost one guy, look at the month of May when Wetherholt went cold.
Right.
You really felt it, and I don't think you're going to experience that now that Newt's back.
Plus, let's say you do withdraw, indeed, another piece of that bullpen from that bullpen in the form of a JoJo Romero. You opt to deal him. You opt to accumulate more and more assets, and then it's a trickle-down effect, right? It's a chain reaction, because who knows also as well, with all due respect here, do we really anticipate that a George Soriano, somebody who's logged a number of high-leverage situations now in innings for this team, but if everybody is pushed up, promoted, so to speak, do you see more and more of the cons there? I think that's realistic. It could happen.
Maybe the intrusive thought should have been Heim just still sells. Because, I mean, that would be the one where Radford just made reference to of, hey, man, I think there's a chance if they're in the playoff picture, they could still trade JoJo Romero.
Yeah.
And if you start plucking, maybe it's not every piece off the roster, but if Heim says, you know what, I am going to trade Dustin May. You know what, I am going to cash in on JoJo and O'Brien.
Just one or two can make that ultimate difference.
It's weird, though, because it's not really an intrusive thought for me, because it's kind of my thought of what the team should do.
See, I think it's a mistake if you're in the playoff picture. The moment you sell, I mean, he would probably do both, if we're being honest, buy and sell. I don't know that plays well with the clubhouse. And I think as much as I poo-poo on the whole clubhouse dynamic, I do think there is something to, hey, that's great what you guys have been doing. I'm not going to give you reinforcements.
I totally get that, but you also have to battle through that. And, I mean, look, I'm the one that's made the statement for the Blues that, you know, you don't trade Braden Shen and Parayko at the time, because I feel like you need to give them the benefit of doubt. This is also a younger team that I feel like sensibly can see what the future is going to look like.
Where I'd push back there, though, on that comp is this team's playing better than what the Blues were doing when they decided to hold on to the Shen. They had gotten hot, but for the vast majority of the season, you could look at them and go, that's not a good hockey team.
You're right, but in both scenarios, I think we looked at the teams and said, I don't know how sustainable this is.
Yeah, and the Blues held, though.
Exactly. But I also think...
And I'm arguing the Cardinals should hold.
Right, but I think the Blues were further along in what they deemed their timeline. Now, we can have disagreements on what their timeline was.
It failed.
This was the first year of it, though. And if you're Heim, you're looking at it being like, hey, this is the first year of this, right? That's what Ollie told us, that they joked around when they were at something and they said, we haven't even done anything yet. They have that picture of like, yes, we want to make sure our players understand that we're going to go for it. But it's also like, this is the first year of it. We're wanting to build a sustainable winner. And I think the Blues believed that was a sustainable winner, to where it was like, this is opening. Now we can start actually doing something with it. So, again, I will understand people being upset. Frankly, if they're in a playoff spot, for how much I've missed playoff baseball, I'll be a little upset. But I also understand kind of where they're coming at, that if they say, look, we're in a playoff spot, we don't believe this is a team that can do much in the playoffs, we're going to go out there and get the best returns possible. And all of that comes back to what I've said before. I got to know what the return is. Because if you're just getting a lottery player in return, keep them. But if you're getting something substantial back in return, that's where it can understand you going forward in that front. Tanner Henderickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll dive into the junk drawer. But coming up next, you send us a scenario to our Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. We'll tell you if we are going to bet it or forget it next here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's BK. Join me and 101 ESPN on Thursday from 3 to 5 o'clock at Paymore in Maplewood. They're new to the St. Louis area, and Paymore is a great way for you to sell, recycle, or buy electronics. Plus, you can enter to win a brand new PS5. Paymore is now open. They've got 2 locations,
one in Baldwin, another in Maplewood. And that's where you can find me from 3 to 5 o'clock on Thursday. They're located at 3212 Laclede Station Road. That's Thursday from 3 to 5 with me and 101 ESPN. Get all the details right now at 101ESPN.com.
Be a part of the show. Text the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation text line at 314-399-9646 on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Redbirds fly into Flushing. I'm Bradford Bruns, your Sports Center update, powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Tonight at 6:10, St. Louis opens a 6-game road trip versus last place New York. Dustin May taking the mound against Freddie Peralta. STL just swept Cincinnati. Mets rookie Carson Binge keyed Sunday's 7-3 victory over San Diego with 5 hits. Big Apple misfortune, meanwhile, for those Knicks. San Antonio's Victor Wembanyama capturing his first NBA Finals win. Ice-wise, Hurricanes Golden Knights festivities resuming this evening. 101 ESPN presenting Puck Drop roughly 6 hours from now. Your Sports Center update was delivered by Soliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Vegas sets them up, and we're here to make the call. It's BK and Ferrario's Bet It or Forget It on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is our Comfort Service text line. You can also do so over on the YouTube channel, our Graveyard Chat at 101 ESPN STL, where you send us a scenario. We will tell you if we are going to bet it or forget it. I like this one from the texter because I was thinking of trying to how to frame this, and they framed it better than I could. So I'm going to steal it as mine. Bet it or forget it. The 636 asked, or I asked, the Cardinals finish with more wins than the Blues have points this upcoming season.
Ooh.
I was thinking Blues wins and Cardinals wins, but that wouldn't even themselves out. So the points things made a lot more sense.
What's it going to take in the Central this coming season, Alex?
I don't think the Blues are a playoff team. I think they could be a wild card team. I would say forget it. I think the Blues finish with more points because to me, I believe the Blues will be floating between 88 and 90 points. 88 to 92, which is going to be a fringe wild card team. I don't think the Cardinals are a 90-win team.
Oh, boy. So Blues had 86 points last year. I think they're probably around there this year, depending on what they do.
I think the Cardinals are probably at about 82 to 83 wins.
I think they're going to have more than that because I think they're going to make the playoffs. I'll say forget it. I'll say, you know what? No, I'll say bet it. I don't know what the Blues are going to do because I could see where the Blues trade Parayko.
Then I will change my tune.
So I'm going to just bet on the thought that I don't know what Army and Steen are going to do. Army could go scorch earth in his final day as GM before the draft.
No, why would he? He's got to be here still for at least another year.
I think the Cardinals are probably like an 87-ish win team because I think they're going to make the playoffs, and I think you're going to need to be above 85 to get there. So I would say bet this the Cardinals will end up with more wins than the Blues will have points this upcoming season.
Oh, it's a close one. I'm going to forget it, not because I don't believe that the Cardinals are a team that could get into the mid-80s, maybe even upper 80s when it comes to the victories. But, Alex, I'm going to be Captain Optimism about the note right now. We've said this before, but there's no conceivable way this organization gets off to the same start, same sort of porous start. I will go with the note upper 80s, maybe even low 90s point total.
God, you know the weight of my heart, Bradford. Boom. Fancy words and Blues optimism. T-Bone?
Guys, bet it or forget it. We will see the Cardinals have 4 20-plus home run hitters this year.
So Walker.
He's almost there.
Yeah, he's 4 away. Burley. I'll say forget it. I don't think Herrera gets there. I don't think Wetherholt gets there. So I think they have 2. So I'll say forget it.
I'll forget it as well because we keep waiting for that power to return. The surge that we saw from Ivan Herrera relatively early last season. I'm not sure he's that guy.
This is where T-Bone tries to convince us Gorman's going to get it.
No, I've given up on him.
Good luck with that, buddy.
He broke my heart.
JJ in the years to come,
in a row.
Maybe not this time
JJ
around.
next year, I might buy into it.
Yeah. I would bet this because I think JJ might be able to get there. He's slugging below 400 right now, yet he still has on the season 9 home runs, which is kind of being slept on. And then I think Burley gets there, and then I think one of Herrera or Nootbaar gets there. I don't know if Nootbaar is going to get enough at-bats to get there. That's why I'm a little skeptical on him.
Ooh.
But I think Herrera is going to get there. I know the power's been down here of late.
I hope so.
I don't know about you guys. I just feel like at some point, maybe it's July that it happens or it starts middle of June here. I'm still waiting on another tear from Herrera to come, and I think more power will be involved with it. So
great
I'd bet
for them. All right, Bradford.
Okay, guys, let's return to the lead because we have a date for Brendan Sorsby's trial against the NCAA. It's set to begin February 8th or 2 weeks after the national championship. Who could have guessed there? Bet it or forget it. Ironically, Texas Tech weathers the noise, possible schedule adjustments, and makes a second straight CFP run.
I'll bet it. because college football is just weird. I don't think that type of noise and controversy messes with them. I just think there's some protection there, and I would imagine Brendan Sorsby's going to feel like he can do anything. So I'll say bet it.
I think I would bet it too. I mean, Sorsby's there. They're going to have the quarterback. They're going to have the roster. They've got what's most important in college athletics is a big booster that's willing to spend on the roster. In a weaker conference, I would bet it. I do find it interesting that the Big 12 AD released a statement after the League ADs had their meeting today, and he said, quote, "We had a thoughtful and productive conversation with our athletics directors today as we continue to work through the broader implications of this situation. Many of our athletic directors voiced their opinions, a.k.a. there was a lot of yelling. We will continue to have open and honest dialogue amongst the group until there is something to report. These conversations will remain within the conference." So the Big 12 doesn't want to do anything about it because they want a playoff team. Yeah. So I will bet this. You will see Texas Tech back in the college football playoff.
Yeah, Tanner,
that's about right.
We talked about this briefly yesterday. How great is it going to be when we think that is, get to return to having on-field based discussions about results? Having said that, I don't know if the Big 12, frankly, is going to be as hotly contested from top to bottom in 26. I also don't know if Brendan Sorsby is going to be markedly better at QB than Baron Morton was. But that roster from top to bottom, once again, one of the best incoming classes, freshman-related and transfer portal additions. Red Raiders above everybody else in the conference.
Also, bad taste by you, Bradford, to say bet it or forget it with Brendan Sorsby.
Yeah, seriously.
Come on, man. Read the room.
Yeah. By the way,
yeah.
What he just made a reference to me, what I did say in the office about it, man, I can't wait for the football season going just because we don't have to hear all these stories constantly. Mm-hmm. Remember when BK was like, isn't the transfer portal exciting? It's like the offseason. No, it's not, because there's all kinds of lawsuits. There's all kinds of grumbling from coaches. I want to be in a league where there's rules, but I don't actually want that because I want to be able to do whatever the hell I want.
It's a lot
I hate the offseason in college athletics.
It's a lot like hockey offseason. It's fun the first couple of weeks, and then it's just boring until the season starts.
There's rules in place to where it's like there's not lawsuits that say, no, actually, you can't trade Dylan Larkin because of this.
You can't tell the Wild West to make rules. They live by their own rules. All right, from the 636 on the Air Comfort Service text line, bet it or forget it, solve the third base issue by moving Walker to third and have the outfield of Newt, Church, and Baez.
Are we doing this?
Hard
to
still doing this.
Just
stop it. Just
Walker
stop it.
Is a right fielder. Walker is not a third baseman. Walker has become a Gold Glove caliber defender in right field. There is no need to move him off of the position.
How about you actually just go upgrade the third base position and get another really good bat?
There?
No, stop it. He's a second baseman. Why can't we just keep people where they are? Why do we need to keep moving pieces around? Just stop it.
But plays Jordan. But plays Jordan.
He's not even a third baseman. From the 314, the Blues, better to forget it, the Blues' number one need this offseason is size in their forward group. I would forget it as that's the number one need. I think it's probably the next need beyond another center. Yes, I think they need size. I do think they're a little small beyond a couple of, I think Holloway's fine. I think Snuggerud's fine. I think Neighbors is fine. But beyond that, you're pretty small. But none of that matters if you don't have the center depth. And I think that's still the number one need for this team.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I would say forget it. I think it is they need center depth. And then the second thing that I would add before you talk about size, now you could maybe argue that this would play into it. They just need depth of scoring, man. They need goal scorers.
You're not wrong.
Whether that guy's tiny or not, I don't really care. My question is, can he score 20 goals?
Yeah, look at the Carolina Hurricanes' wings. They're not big guys. They just can score.
Exactly. So I agree with you 100%. I would say forget it.
From Barclays Bone, Blues trade up into the top 10 to draft Vijo Bjork. For those that don't know, Swedish center, he's like 5'9", 165 pounds. But the consensus after the combine is, which, by the way, we're going to have somebody join us to talk about the combine and kind of an update on the scouting market tomorrow. But the consensus is he's the second best center in this draft, right in front of Ty Lawrence. I'd forget it. After I saw the mock draft today on The Athletic, I think the hope, if you're the Blues, is you get one of Vijo Bjork or Ty Lawrence and be happy with whomever you get.
Yeah, I would say forget it as well. I don't think they're trading into the... Let me rephrase it. If they trade into the top 10, it's not for a center. It's probably for Stenberg. And it is, they trade up to 4 or 2 to go get him. I could
see him trade to 8 or 9 if they feel like that player is in their tier list. But I just don't know if it is or not. They could trade 11 and a third-round pick to move up 2 spots. If the team that doesn't want, like, let's say the Jets guys are gone and they're like, we can get another player at 11, and the Blues really want number 8 to get the guy they want. I can see it. I just don't know who's in that tier list for them. And from everything I've heard, Bjork and Ty Lawrence are kind of similar in terms of their profile. So why trade to get one if you think the other one's going to fall to you?
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up is because I think 6 through 11, and again, Blues may grade it out differently, but consensus seems to be that you're getting a really good player 6 through 11, so there's probably no need to waste draft capital trading up to like 8, for example.
Yeah. From the 618, bet it or forget it, you'd have interest in the Twins in this year's first round of the draft. For those that don't know, they're the Ruck brothers. There's a Liam and Marcus Ruck.
I'll let you answer this. At first, I thought we were going to be talking about trading with the Minnesota Twins.
No.
Which I do like Joe Ryan, but I don't think we can afford him with our draft capital. With our capital we're willing to trade.
There's 2 twins that played in the WHL this year, Liam and Marcus Ruck. Liam had 45 goals and 104 points. His brother had like 60-something assists. Both were 100-point players. The winger, Liam Ruck, who scored the 45 goals, he's projected to be a first-round pick. The other one's projected to be like a second-round pick. I don't think I'm wasting 15 and a late first-round pick for these 2 guys unless I truly believe they can be stars. So I think one of them gets picked in the first round. I think the other gets picked in the second round, and they go about their merry way. But maybe they get selected onto the same team. Who knows? Final one, bet it or forget it. If we didn't trade Nolan Arenado, we wouldn't be worried about this team being a playoff team. I don't know if anybody's worried that they're going to be a playoff team or not. I would have traded Nolan Arenado because I wanted to know what Nolan Gorman was.
Yeah.
I'm fine. There's this misconception of like we're upset that Nolan Gorman's not good. No, I'm fine with understanding that. Now is you have to get an answer. If Nolan Arenado is still here, I feel like the conversation would still be from somebody, but Nolan Gorman has the potential to hit 40 home runs.
Yeah.
No, we're done with that now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I forget that because it's not so much about the playoff. It was about figuring out, as Derek says, who's a part of the core and who's not a part of the core. And the answer on Gorman is not a part of the core, right? Yeah. Unless he just somehow figures it out miraculously over the next 4 months. But I don't see that coming. So, yeah, I would forget it. It wasn't about, they had to figure out what they had in Gorman. And the answer wasn't good. They know that, and they can go from there.
Funny, I don't think those messages were coming through after the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season, during which Arenado was hitting a big nothing burger. He's coming on nicely, sure, but my gosh.
I think we're okay with that one. Tanner Henderickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Jeremy Rutherford's going to join us in about 15 minutes. In about 10 minutes, we'll get into, I guess 20 minutes now because my time management has been awful today. But coming up at 15 minutes, we're going to talk about J.J. Wetherholt, who's putting together another special season. Not another special season, but another notch in his special season. But coming up next, we dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer is presented by Bet365. With Bet365 early payout, you win even if they lose. Get paid out instantly when your team goes up big, even if they blow the lead later. Bet365. Winning is everything.
Let's dive into the Junk Drawer here on BK and Ferrario, along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. T-Bone, what do you got for us today?
So I saw this last week and a half ago, and I'm curious your guys' thought on this. I know it's a hot-button topic, AI.
Oh, boy.
I'm curious if you would have any interest in wanting to watch this, or if you would just blatantly say no because it's AI, I'm not going to. Amazon revealed they are making 3 new shows for Amazon Prime Video, and they are going to be using generative AI. As the announcement came, they are going to be using Gen AI creators funds that aims to allow TV shows and movies that would not have been possible before. So it's a show just completely made by using AI. Would you guys have interest? I don't know what the shows are about, so I mean, I know that is a key disclaimer here. But if you said, hey, I watched the trailer, that looks interesting, I don't care if it's solely made by AI, I would be willing to give it a shot.
So a scripted show that is generated by AI.
And my understanding is any, is graphics the right word? Not graphic, animation or CGI that needs to be used would all be used through AI.
Oh, so like with the NBA Finals broadcasts, those have been great. Going to break, bumping into break with Tony Parker looking like not a human.
That's okay.
I'm so psyched for this, Alex.
I honestly, I could care less. I don't think I'd have any interest unless the show is interesting. I don't know if I would. Everything feels like it's so animated and AI generated now that I feel like I'd watch this and be like, yeah, that makes sense. So like, are the actors in it AI generated?
I believe it's all
so like
AI.
Everything is AI.
Everything is AI.
Yeah,
is my understanding of the way they kind of laid this out from what I saw.
I feel like I would watch it, but I feel like I would give it probably 5 minutes, and when you notice it, you can't unsee it. It's why it's hard for me to believe that so many people get stumped by AI stuff on social media, because some of it, like, you see it, it's like, this is obviously AI. Like, I was joking with my wife the other day because she saw something on Marketplace that she'd like, oh, the girls would love this. I go, this is so AI. And then she Googled it and realized
it was like
that
a 20-foot like slide you could
it was like
your house.
Fake or something. And I go, how are people falling for this? So I feel like I would notice it and then be completely out on it. But I'd give it a shot.
There's still that uncanny valley, right? You can't replicate exactly what you're getting with the human beings. And I'm sorry if we're talking about the creative spark of a show, of a movie, etc., a piece of art in that medium. No, I'm not going to watch something, observe something, consume something that isn't being driven by that originality. No, I have no interest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like that's where it is.
I would try it if it looked like an interesting show. My question, though, is if you're using AI for the voice actors, do they have any personality? Because that's the other thing. When you use the AI now, it doesn't necessarily have the best personality.
Yeah, I feel like I would be in on it. I'd be intrigued, and then I'd be like, okay, this is so brutal to watch, and then I would be out on it so fast. But that seems to be how most AI goes these days. Tanner Henderickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Hey, join BK and 101 ESPN this Thursday from 3 to 5 at the Paymore in Maplewood. New to the St. Louis area, Paymore is a great way to sell, recycle, and buy electronics. And this Thursday, you can get 20% off all in-store purchases, plus get entered to win a brand new PS5. Paymore is now open with 2 locations in Baldwin and Maplewood, and you can check out the Maplewood location located at 3212 Laclede Station Road this Thursday from 3 to 5 with BK and 101 ESPN. Get all the details at 101ESPN.com. JJ Wetherholt putting together a truly special season. You're not going to believe the list that he could be a part of at the end of this year. That, and do the Cardinals need to pump the brakes on using Ivan Herrera so much? We'll discuss all that next here on 101 ESPN.
Need more Blues talk? Check out the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donnie Fandango, and Jeremy Rutherford on 101 ESPN. The guys bring you the latest news and notes on your St. Louis Blues. Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com.
If you have medical issues, such as nagging injury, Healthcare Evolution will give you same-day pain relief without surgery. We provide free phone consultations, and for a limited time, 70% off your in-person consultation. Go to
Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So it goes without saying that J.J. Wetherholt is putting together a truly special season. He's been, at least from the most recent stuff that I've seen, the favorite to win the Rookie of the Year this season. He's truly just been consistent on-base threat with some power, and really even the slumps that he's gone through have been about a week, and he finds his way out of it. He has stayed in that leadoff spot, has provided some really strong defense at second base. He's been everything that Cardinals fans have wanted this top pick to be for St. Louis. But just to add more into it of a special season that Wetherholt has had, his WAR projection, which is wins above replacement, is right now currently on pace for a 6.9. I can't ask you this question because you're the one that put this list together, T-Bone, so I can't even ask Bradford because we discussed it already. But I'll ask the general population. Do you know the last Cardinal rookie to have that high of a WAR? Pause. 3, 2,
I'm thinking Albert.
1. It's never happened.
Oh,
never.
Man. Ever.
The closest was Albert. He had a 6.6 WAR in his rookie season. Lou Klein, which I'm going to guess the era of Lou Klein, 1927.
Look it up.
Feels like the Pepper Martin days.
Lou Klein feels like the 20s, unless he was a Gas House Gang member. I don't think he was. What was it, T-Bone?
Luke Klein's rookie season with
it's a black and white picture, so I'm feeling good about my choice.
1943.
It's 20 years off. But anyway, Stan Musial of 5.3. Mason Wynn, a 5.1, which was excelled by his incredible defense at shortstop. And then Rogers Hornsby at a 5 WAR in his rookie season. That's
Not
the top
bad.
5 rookie players. And J.J. Wetherholt is slated to surpass those pieces. Now, by no means am I saying Wetherholt is going to be better than Albert Pujols, better than Stan Musial or Rogers Hornsby. But what we can say is J.J. Wetherholt is not one of those flukes to where it's like, oh, he has a great rookie year and everything changes. And if he finishes that way because he's played great defense for you at second base, but his bat has played, because if you think about it, this guy is getting the most at-bats on your team with the leadoff position. And to finish the year of a rookie season with that type of benchmark to add to your resume, man, the Cardinals completely won when they selected J.J. Wetherholt, and it's part of the reason why whatever happens this season feels different because you have that piece along with J.J. Walker as your building blocks.
Yeah, and I
Jordan Walker, by the way, not J.J. Walker. You can call him J.J. Walker if you want.
I wasn't going to point that out.
Jordan's middle name's got to be James.
For Wetherholt, I mean, one, it's unbelievable what he's doing because, I mean, as you mentioned, though he's still in a little bit of a slump, I wonder how much of his timing has just kind of been off because he's had the weird couple of days with the groin issue. But the thing with him is I feel like he's only going to get better from here. Yeah. I mean, like, if you're going to come into the league and kind of take it by storm like this and already project to have a WAR that's higher than Albert's, now, look, we can have an argument on whether WAR is a good stat or not. I'd argue no because Albert's a better player overall than Wetherholt, but I'm not going to get into that right now.
Let's do it, though.
But I think it is a sign of, boy, if this way he does in his rookie year, when I thought he would at best be about league average, your hope is that eventually he starts to hit for a little bit more average, maybe adds a little bit more pop. And that's what you're talking about when you're looking ahead to what they've got in this build. All right, so I've got an MVP candidate in Jordan Walker. I've got J.J. Wetherholt that's potentially rookie of the year and hopefully going to be able to continue to grow upon that. You're talking about the beginning right there, just those two guys, before we even have another conversation about what else is coming, of something that could potentially be special with this lineup. And for Wetherholt, it's not just the offense, too. I mean, it's the defense that's boosting up that WAR.
Yeah.
He looks like a Gold Glove caliber second baseman.
Absolutely.
And I was a little worried about him in spring training, because in spring training, you'd have some weird moments over there at second base. And I thought, okay, well, you know what? If he's not great defensively, that's not the end of the world. He's been fantastic. I mean, look at the two plays he made on Sunday against the Cincinnati Reds. Going to the backhand, which he worked on with, I think, Wong in spring training. Beautiful play there, gets it, tosses to second for an out, and then makes that great leaping catch later on in the game. He's been fantastic on all sides of things. And by the way, he's also going to become a better stolen base threat as well, I think, as he continues to grow into and get a better feel into the Major League Baseball season.
No, and to reiterate, this is year number one. You've seen the defensive plaudits, and they've been justified in approaching this season, guys. We never would have had that objective, maybe that goal that J.J. Wetherholt could be playing Gold Glove-worthy defense at second base. And Tanner, to speak to that WAR number, which is really astronomical in so many different respects, I think all of this, the entire package, allows you to dream potentially on the heights that J.J. Wetherholt could reach down the line. I listened on numerous occasions, guys, as we entered this season, as we approached it last year. Yes, there was a lot of fanfare. There was a lot of excitement. But the general consensus was, okay, does J.J. Wetherholt have a point at which he maxes out and he's a good to very above average major league hitter? But now here we are talking about down the line. Could you be talking about somebody who approaches 20-plus home run territory? Could you be talking about somebody who's in that 280 to 300 range? All of this is to say the ability there to really exceed expectations. You're not talking about somebody who just profiles as a steady baseline major league hitter, Dylan Carlson-esque in his first couple of seasons,
don't
right?
Say that name.
Look,
Damn it, Bradford.
Hey, that name was referenced as a direct comp, if I'm not mistaken, maybe during this slot. But all of that is to say, it is not so much. Not so much. But it's enticing, isn't it?
No.
No, it's not.
Carlson stunk. And Carlson, by the way, just to add to that point, why I think it's different.
There was a fear.
People hate when I point to the nerdy numbers and the peek under the hood. But when you look at the baseball reference page for Wetherholt, a lot of red.
Red
That's
means good, ladies and gentlemen. It's not like a red light.
When you looked at Carlson, didn't necessarily hit the ball extremely hard. There was some red, but a lot of blue on there, which would say, okay, maybe he can't continue to do this.
But you get what I'm saying, right?
Can.
Tools-wise, there was a fear among many that, okay, is there an exceptional skill for J.J. Wetherholt a la Dylan Carlson?
I think there was, and it was the contact as a hitter. And some people thought he would grow into power. I was a little skeptical of that, but I think he has the tool that Carlson never really had. And Carlson, his rookie year looked more like what Wins did. Because Wynn's a guy that's never hit the ball hard.
Yeah.
And as we've seen, his offense has never gotten back to what it was 2 years ago. So I am very much encouraged by looking at this and going, okay, this feels like it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah, well, and you know what? It might not, and we find out next year. But for now, you look at it and say, man, rookie of the year, potentially the best WAR on the team. All you have to do is build on it. It's the same as Jordan Walker. Like Jordan Walker, you're going to end the season feeling great about it. He's adapted. He had his slumps and he dug his way out of it. but you're only going to really judge it what it looks like once you see it another season. And that's going to be the same for J.J. Wetherholt, but it does give you the optimism, the same optimism you had about Dylan Carlson after that first year. And if it turns the same way the second season, well, then, yeah, you start to get concerned. But for right now, he doesn't give me the same vibes because of his pitch recognition, his ability to dig himself out of slumps that he's been in, and all of this in your rookie season, where now you're almost 3 months in. Teams have adapted to you, and you found a way to stay competitive, and that's something that's very important here. Bradford Brun's Tanner Henderickson coming up at 15. We'll get to some NFL quick hitters, but Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider, joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
The Redbird Report, your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario, as we now head to our Collier and Thompson hotline to speak with our Blues insider of The Athletic, also co-host of the Last Minute Blues podcast, and he was a co-host of TMA earlier today, Jeremy Rutherford, the man that just never stops. JR, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, making the rounds today. Good. How you guys doing? Just saw you a little bit ago.
I'm surprised you're not sick of us yet for how much 101 you've been all over this week.
That'll never happen.
That'll never happen. You're like the Energizer Bunny on this one. JR, always good, man. Let's just talk a little bit about the most recent mock draft that came out from The Athletic earlier today. I mentioned it when we did questions and answers earlier today. I had my qualms with the idea of selecting all three picks. I just felt like it was a spot that the team finds themselves in that you really want to make an aggressive move. Man, after reading that mock draft today and after hearing how unlikely it is that they're going to be able to put the price together to go up and move in this draft, I think I'm starting to settle on the fact that it might be best for this team just to select all three of their picks.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a number of people, every day that mention a mock draft at The Athletic to me, and I say this with all due respect to my teammates, colleagues. They are churning out a lot of mock drafts. I lose track of which mock draft people are talking about.
Understandable.
I feel like every time I log in, there's a different mock draft. And actually, they have us working on one behind the scenes right now. I think it'll be the second one. We did one on draft night, too, when they did the draft lottery. And it comes to my pick. And I look to see if there's a center like a Lawrence or a Bjork, and if they're not there, then I don't know what to do. Do you go winger with Cullen or Belchetz, or do you drop to second tier defenseman? I've done that a couple times with Malte Gustafsson. So I think even though Doug Armstrong was speaking in generalities when I spoke to him a week or so ago, he said if we think the players 6 through 11 are in the same block, then we're not going to trade up because we know we're going to get one of those players. So he certainly wasn't speaking specifically to this situation, but that's kind of the way it looks. If there's a player who could go 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, the Blues would be just as well wait until it comes their pick.
JR, the news that kind of shook the hockey world last week was the news of Dylan Larkin requesting a trade from the Detroit Red Wings. It's kind of an unknown on how big his list actually is in that trade request, but do you think that would be a move that could make some sense for the St. Louis Blues?
So a couple things. One, the list is going to be short for places that Dylan Larkin will go. And I think it was Helene Elliott in Detroit who put out the list of Minnesota, Vegas, and
Florida.
Florida.
Yep.
So those are the three. So if that's the list, then yeah, it's going to make things tough. And the Minnesota deal makes sense. Like Minnesota's got some players that would really help Detroit. In terms of the Blues, the Athletic sent us writers that question the night that it was announced that Dylan Larkin had requested a trade, and they said, does it make sense for your team? And so I had to sit there and think about it for a minute, Tanner, before I sent 50, 75 words into the Athletic. And I just said that it makes a little bit of sense. And I know probably get grilled for that a little bit. Which team wouldn't benefit from adding Dylan Larkin up the middle? The Blues need, two centers. Thomas and Larkin would be phenomenal. I know some people said, do you trade Thomas straight up for Dylan Larkin? Here's why I said that it just makes a little sense. Of course you'd love to have him. But you're talking about a guy who's 30, and right now the Blues, I don't think they're going to trade Robert Thomas. I think they've moved on from that idea. But I think that, they were looking at Thomas at 26 as a guy who might age out by the time they're ready to truly contend again. So what's the guy who's 30 going to do? So would he help? For sure. Does he want to come here? It doesn't appear that the Blues are a team on his list. And if you're the Blues, do you mortgage some or multiple young guys, prospects, picks, so on and so forth for Dylan Larkin, and would Detroit even want that in return? So to me, it doesn't seem like something that could come together, but sure, who wouldn't want Dylan Larkin?
We're talking with Jeremy Rutherford, our insider for the St. Louis Blues, covers for the team for The Athletic. You can find him on Twitter at JP Rutherford. JR, the offseason, I think everybody, Blues fans-wise, thought that, there's a chance Thomas could get moved. Parayko could get moved. Kyrou could get moved. I know Andy Strickland put it out over the weekend that he doesn't believe believe Robert Thomas is going to get moved. That name's off the table now. Do you believe the same thing? And if that's true, does that tell you that the Blues have decided the direction that they're going in if they said, we're not moving Robert Thomas?
Well, as we were talking last week, Alex, I asked those types of questions to Doug Armstrong when I had him on the phone last week. And as you and I talked about, I think on the podcast, we said that Doug Armstrong has the easy cop-out right now. He can say that's an Alexander Steen question. And so it is kind of tough to get, the true details behind the scenes, what they're thinking, because the person answering the questions right now is going to hand over the reins to Alexander Steen here in a couple weeks. So we'll know more when we talk to Steen, which I think will be around the time of the draft and the start of free agency, July 1st. But, do they want to trade Robert Thomas? I don't think they do. I think there's been some conversations behind the scenes, where both sides have kind of talked and expressed the way they see things. And just listening to Robert Thomas after all the trade reports came out around the trade deadline, guys, you guys heard him, even at the locker stall there, he said, look, I think we're closer than most people think, and I want to be a part of this. So I think with the way he played, that's the player that Blues fans want to see, the team wants to see. They would just like to see it at the start of the season and for the majority of the 82, now 84 games from Robert Thomas, and he seems like a guy who's ready to give them that.
JR, Alex made reference to maybe the hot button topic guy for the St. Louis Blues and Jordan Kyrou, as he mentioned his name there. I'm curious, there was a kind of an unknown over the last couple of weeks on what the future would be for Alex Tuck in Buffalo, and now reports seem to suggest, hey, he's going to go to the market and he's going to test where free agency can get him, and he's a perennial 30-goal scorer. Do you think he has any impact on the Jordan Kyrou market now that he's going to go to free agency, which will open up on July 1st?
Yeah, first of all, when you say a hot button topic, I feel like every time Kyrou's name is mentioned, there should be a button that goes off or something that is just alerted a red light. But yeah, to answer your question, I think all those types of things have an impact on what happens with the other players who may be available. For example, let's say the Blues wanted to trade Robert Thomas. There's probably some teams out there who would prefer Thomas 26 over Larkin, despite the fact that Larkin's production, has been consistently good for a number of years. But, with Larkin being available, and if Thomas were available, it's going to have an impact on the market. And I think the same could be said with an Alex Tuck and, like a Jordan Kyrou. Like, if there's more players available in the market and, Buffalo's not re-signing him before free agency, a team who might have been interested in Jordan Kyrou maybe turns its sights on Tuck. I'm not saying there is. I'm just saying there certainly is that possibility, and really no way to know unless you're inside some of these teams' headquarters.
I know, JR, that Army had kind of made reference to this when you talked to him. But do you think it is the draft will be the deadline on the decision for Kyrou, or do you think that could be something that trickles in later into the offseason because they may have to wait on the market to develop after Tuck signs?
Yeah, I think it's tough. And, I always try to say up front that as much as Doug Armstrong and now Alexander Steen want to prepare for the possibilities, they don't even know how it's going to unfold. So when Doug Armstrong says that the draft could be the trade deadline for some players, and we automatically think of a Jordan Kyrou, I think it's because you can kind of be in talks, planning for a trade that could include draft picks, swapped either way, coming, going, whatever. And sometimes that makes a deal more attractive, especially in like a change of scenery trade that it could be with Kyrou and whoever's coming to St. Louis. And I think what happens is after the draft, it just becomes less predictable of what could happen. And so I don't know, Doug doesn't know, Alex doesn't know when a deal could happen. But I think once you let the draft come and go, and now you're not using those draft picks in a potential package because they've been used, and also you've allowed teams to enter free agency and go after the guys they want, yeah, it clears things up a little bit as to who needs what. But I think it makes it more difficult to July 15th, July 30th to say, okay, here's the team that we need to move Jordan Kyrou too. It just seems like there's more options available prior to those dates and those events.
Do you think, JR, and tell me if you think I'm off base here, that would be more of a deadline for, say, a Colton Parayko than it would be for a Jordan Kyrou? Because for Kyrou, at least you've got a potential Carbonneau replacement that could eventually be able to take over that spot. Meanwhile, for Parayko, if they move him, they may want to go to the market to bring in a veteran on a shorter-term deal to kind of help them while they kind of develop that younger defensive core in the season.
Yeah, that could be too. I could see a situation where, hey, if you're moving on from Parayko, you'd want to do that sooner than later so you can find a replacement. That goes back to the conversations that are being had behind the scenes between these players, their agents, and the team. We could sit here and talk about it and just not know that they spoke last week and Parayko's told them he wants to stay. And, you try to get to the bottom of that stuff, but, those are the conversations that are being had. If you move a Parayko post, his position with somebody in free agency who might still be out there, that's going to be tough. I don't think personally that the Blues would put themselves in that position. So that's another reason why that creates a bit of a deadline.
JR, final one we'll ask you, and we appreciate the time as always. It does, at least hearing Johnston talk about it, LeBrun talk about it, it does feel like this is going to be a pretty active trade market because of that free agency class that's just not that great. And it sounds like there's going to be more and more names that pop up, which could benefit the Blues, I guess, because they're looking for upgrades, or it could also hurt them because their commodities might not be the most desired.
Yeah, and it's the situation certainly looks that way. That's the biggest thing, is if the free agent market is bleak, which it is, and teams are hungry to change up their roster, and the salary cap's going up, and there are more teams with more space that they could add certain players in a trade that maybe they couldn't add before. It's got all the ingredients, like Chris Johnston and Pierre LeBrun, my colleagues at The Athletic, have written about. It's just that, gosh, guys, 20 years, every time I hear the word active trade market, it just never happens. But it's all there on the table. And listen, you got guys like Doug Armstrong in my article last week saying we plan to be as active as others around us will allow us to be. That's not something that he's typically said in the past. So it's certainly setting up that way.
Not good enough, JR. We need firm, this is going to happen.
I want McDavid.
Yeah, I want Matthews. No, I want McDavid instead. JR, always great stuff, man. Have fun with the next 17 mock drafts that you have to put together, and we'll talk next week.
4 more coming out tomorrow.
Of course there will be, and we'll break every single one of them down. Jeremy Rutherford of The Athletic with us on the Callier and Thompson hotline. Let's take a break. When we return, we'll get to some NFL quick hitters, including Baker Mayfield. Sounds like that negotiation's not going very well, and a couple of others we'll touch on next here on 101 ESPN.
Next Friday, June 19th, the morning after, along with our radio friends from all 5 Hubbard stations, are set to team up to fill a truck for Operation Food Search. Stop by the station next Friday morning because TMA will be heading downstairs to broadcast live out front in our parking lot from 7 to 11 a.m., collecting canned goods and non-perishable food items. We'll be handing out 101 stickers, donuts from Donut Drive-In while supplies last, and everyone who stops by to donate will have a chance to enter to win a $500 grand prize. Now is a critical time to support as summers see a big drop in food donations, so get your food donations ready and bring them by next Friday from 7 to 11 a.m. with the morning after and 101 ESPN out in front of Hubbard St. Louis. That's 11647 Olive Boulevard in Creve Coeur. Get all the details at 101ESPN.com with support from Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Grab the new Famous Wrap for only $2.99 at Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. And the Happy Roof Company, building trust, helping families, giving back. Visit thehappyroof.com.
Now listen to 101 ESPN On Demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Mets mired in NL East basement. Good afternoon. It's Bradford Bruns. This Sports Center update is powered by Universal Windows Direct. Tonight at Citi Field, the Cardinals begin a 3-game set versus last place New York. First pitch scheduled for 6:10 p.m. St. Louis righty Dustin May tries to secure his 4th victory of 2026. Freddie Peralta, meanwhile, faces Ali Marmol's crew. Stanley Cup Final Contest number 4 looming. Carolina-Vegas puck drop coming your way. About 5 hours from now, Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby's trial against NCAA powers that be will begin February 8th, 2 weeks after college football's national championship. This SportsCenter update was brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Let's get into a couple of NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario, along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Let's start with Baker Mayfield. Seems like everything's good and hunky-dory in Tampa Bay for Baker, right?
What's Shaky Bakey up to?
Not a whole lot, other than not being pleased with the contract negotiations with Tampa Bay. Mayfield told some people that they aren't close on a deal, says he won't negotiate once training camp begins. Of course, Baker Mayfield is a free agent at the end of this year. I don't know what's going to happen with this. Frankly, I mean, look, at some point the magic should go away for Baker Mayfield, and I would understand Tampa going in a different direction. I understand them not negotiating with him. Like, Mike Evans is now gone. I know they've got Igbuka. Chris Godwin can't stay healthy. I just don't think their team is in any position to be dangerous in the NFC. If I'm them, I'd probably start to try and turn this thing in a different direction. So negotiating with Baker, I'd probably let this whole thing play itself out before I'd go to him.
I'd pay this guy. The reason I say that, you're not getting any better. I mean, look at the quarterback purgatory a lot of organizations have been in.
Could be.
I get it. Baker's can be inconsistent at times. When that dude's healthy, he plays well.
He's 31 though, man. How much more?
That's
how much
young
more
for a quarterback?
But
I mean,
this
Stafford's like almost 40.
But this quarterback that likes to take the brunt of abuse running the football.
Yeah, he doesn't. I don't view him as a guy that takes the brunt of the abuse. He takes off when he has to, but we've seen at times when the Bucs are able to protect him. He's not willing to just throw the body around. I think that's more of a failure on the Bucs than it is on Baker.
Yeah, he'll take off to extend plays, but how did that O-line look last season?
Exactly.
How much does it look moving forward?
But I think you got to pay this guy, because otherwise, what's the path forward if you're the Bucs?
Rebuild?
Yeah, and I think they've got enough pieces they don't have to do that. And they're in their division, to me, plays into this as well.
Well, heading
He's
into
the best quarterback in that division.
I just feel like in the NFC, it's just, man, it's such tough sledding. I mean, you're right. In that division, you don't have to be that great.
But
you can find a way.
how much longer can, because like I understand what you're saying. Let's be honest about the Rams. I love them. They've got like 3 years. Maybe. That's a maybe. Their window is going to be closing before it even extends. They're that much closer to the end of it. It's why they push their chips all in this year. Seattle, I don't know how much I believe in them with Sam Darnold. You know, once the defense takes a step back, they're not going to be as good. We've already seen with Philadelphia, they've taken a step back, and I think they're only going to continue to kind of free fall.
Right.
And then you look at the 49ers and you go, all right, well, do you really fear them that much that you wouldn't be willing to extend Baker Mayfield and just go into a rebuild? I personally wouldn't. I would probably pay him, and I think he's going to be a top 10, maybe arguably top 5 paid quarterback in the league.
And that division year after year, we understand this, guys, is entirely gettable. You think about Atlanta, for instance. Does anybody have great confidence in Michael Penix Jr.? I think not. Will we see an encore performance, better stuff maybe from Bryce Young? Potentially. And then in New Orleans, maybe you actually struck gold with a Tyler Shuck. However, I'm really torn here because the whole impetus behind Tampa Bay signing Mayfield prior to 2023 on a prove-it deal was that the organization didn't have the proper funds post-Tom Brady to commit to the quarterback position. Now, he was very good. He reeled off 2 consecutive very good seasons, but when you think about losing Mike Evans, when you think about, honestly, how much of the ground game, frankly, needs to be solidified as well. He's also, let's be honest, a bit of a turnover machine, okay? Even in that great 25 campaign, or 24 rather, he had 16 interceptions. And by the same token, I do think that he is on the level of a Sam Darnold. He's making $33 million to the $33.5 earned by Sam Darnold. So how does that actually come out in the wash? It means you're a middle-of-the-road QB in terms of compensation. I don't think you can afford, literally, to go markedly higher. But in order to be competitive, if you like that window with Godwin, with Agbuka, and you think you can do some damage in the division, was last year the one-off, though? That's what I worry about, really.
Yeah, I can see both sides of it. I think if I'm Tampa, I let the season play itself out, see what we look like when the dust settles, and then still negotiate. But I get it, man. You're right.
My fear with that would be he has a great year, and then you're paying even more. That's why I would do it now. Or then you get stuck in the situation where you have to franchise tag him, and then you're back into the same conversation. I just think with the quarterback spot, and with Baker especially, because we've seen it in the past, it's too risky to play it out. I think he could really cash in if he has another big year.
Well, speaking of quarterbacks getting paid, let's move to another one in the other side, in the AFC, with the Houston Texans, because C.J. Stroud is going to be up, or is up, for a contract extension. Do we see him getting one before camp begins for the Texans?
I don't know about you guys. This guy, I'm not paying.
See, I'm the opposite on this one.
Oh,
I think you got to pay this.
Oh, man.
He's young. You've got the team. The defense is there. You've got to pay this guy.
Alex, he was outplayed by Davis Mills last season.
Look at what that offensive line was.
Just
that
saying.
Sentence
Okay,
right there was enough for me.
How
not to
did
pay him.
Davis Mills extract more value in concert with that offense? Now, you can say what you want in the early portion of the season about not having a running game either, but what you saw down the stretch from C.J. Stroud, I don't know if you can even characterize that as regression last season, because frankly in 24, he regressed from where he had been the previous year. We know the meat and potatoes here, the calling card for Houston, it's going to be defense. Now, can you get a market upgrade at the position? I'm not so sure. But I'm more than willing to wait here, because when push came to shove in the postseason, no less, Houston legitimately could have taken down New England. Why did Houston fail to get the job accomplished? 2 words, C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
Period.
I'd still pay him. For the same reason we talked about with Baker Mayfield, I don't think you're finding anything better. And your defense is prepared to win now. You just got to find a way to get the best out of C.J. Stroud.
I just look at Stroud and I go, what Bradford said, he hasn't shown progress since year one. He's gotten worse since year one. He screams like a Tua extension, right? Or I don't know if it's fair to say this of Trevor Lawrence anymore, but Lawrence was one that I was very worried about when the Jags paid him. Now, he's kind of proven me wrong after his year last year in that Liam Cohen system.
We'll see.
But I'm still skeptical. But my fear is if you pay C.J. Stroud, this is going to be the Tua contract.
Yep.
To where you look back on it and go, why did we pay that guy when that guy had really one good year? Well, we could have just played this out, because they can play out this year, and then I believe they picked up the team option, so they've got another year as well. So I would not. I think he's got to prove it on the field before I start to have that conversation.
And I don't want to hear about the rotating parts offensively either, the threats vertically on the outside too. Yes, I understand Nico Collins has missed some time. You've missed Tank Dell for prolonged stretches, but the elite guys at that QB position, they're able to elevate the minimal talent around them. I don't think Stroud's that guy.
Understandably so. Bradford Bruns, Tanner Henderickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll take a break, come back, and rewind it before we close it down for the day here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
The NBA Finals are on ESPN. Tomorrow night, Spurs and Knicks. Pregame at 6:30. Tip-off at 7:30. Your home for the NBA is 101 ESPN. Then nominate yourself to be the Morning After Listener of the Month, and you could be selected and score a Form Energy prize pack. Sign up now at 101ESPN.com or TMASTL.com. The TMA Listener of the Month Club is presented by Form Energy. We do the work. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with the Daily Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Hey, next Friday morning, June 19th, TMA, along with our radio friends from all 5 Hubbard stations, are set to team up to fill a truck for Operation Food Search. Support from Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken and the Happy Roof Company. Stop by the station next Friday morning because TMA is going to be heading downstairs to broadcast live out front in our parking lot from 7 to 11 a.m., collecting canned goods and non-perishable food items. We'll be handing out donuts from Donut Drive-In while supplies last, and everyone who stops by will have a chance to enter to win $500 grand prize. Now is a critical time to support as Summers see a big drop in food donations. Get your food donations ready and bring them by next Friday morning, 7 to 11 a.m. with TMA and 101 ESPN out in front of Hubbard, St. Louis, 11647 Olive Boulevard in Creve Coeur. As we hit the rewind with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. If you missed anything from the show today, we had conversation with Derrick Goold and Jeremy Rutherford. Check it out afterwards on our podcast page, 101ESPN.com. The podcast is brought to you by Schaefer Door Company, and also check it out on the 101 ESPN app, which is presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Center. So Cardinals guys get set to open up the series tonight against the New York Mets. As it's expected, Nathan Church will be announced joining the team, as Victor Scott already earlier today announced as the paperwork was transferred. He going to Memphis. What do we think this lineup's going to look like? Nathan Church expected to be in center field tonight.
Yeah, I think your top 6 is going to be the same. So Wetherholt, Herrera, Burley, Walker, Newt, and Wynn. And then I think they're just going to load up with the 3 lefties at the bottom of the order. I think it'll be some combination of Crooks, Gorman, Church. My gut tells me Crooks is 7. You'll see Gorman in the 8 spot and Church 9. That way, if he does get on base, you got a little bit of speed in front for your big boppers that'll be coming up once the top of the order gets to kind of come around.
Yeah.
This should be a fun series for the Cardinals, and I think it's going to be a good test as to what kind of boost Nootbaar brings to the lineup. And the reason I say this is because the rotation's been pretty good for the Mets so far this year. They're in line to see Peralta, Scott, McLean. All 3 of those guys have been very good for the Mets so far this season. So this is going to be a test on what the offense can do against them. How are they going to hold up against these 3 right-handed starters that they're going to see in this series? Your pitching staff should be fine. We talked about it earlier. The Mets offense, it's bad. Yes. They have the second worst offense by OPS in Major League Baseball. So I expect the rotation in your bullpen should be fine. My question is, okay, now you've got Newt back. Is he going to provide that boost that you've been looking for to that 5 spot in the order?
It does really feel like this is not a significant series, but to what Derek was talking about, man, like the narrative for Chaim Bloom is very different when you think of if you take 2 of 3 or if you sweep the Mets. You've beaten the Mets, you've beaten the Reds, you've beaten the Cubs, you've beaten the Pirates, you've beaten the Padres, you've beaten the Dodgers. Like all of these teams that you're surrounded by, you've taken care of business again. So if you want to keep that narrative of, hey, look, this is not a team that should sell at the deadline. This is a team that should either buy or just let it play itself out at the deadline. This helps in that. Like the month of June really benefits the Cardinals to keep selling the idea of, hey, this is a team worth investing in rather than selling pieces off.
And I've made reference to this when we've talked about this. You look at that June schedule, which you made reference to. It's not a lot of tough opponents on it, right?
The Diamondbacks and the Braves at the end of June going into July are the toughest ones.
And then San Diego as well. They've got good pitching. Now the offense is bad, so they're gonna be tougher. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you look at the Mets. Like the Mets, we talked about, they're the worst team in the National League East so far this year. The Twins are not very good. The Royals are awful. Miami's not very good. Those are 3 of the next 5 series that are coming up for the St. Louis Cardinals. Yeah. So this should be when they take advantage and hopefully build some cushion in the wild card standings to where maybe they can really push themselves into that bye category.
It's crazy how he framed it, but he's absolutely correct in how he framed it, that we've gotten to the point to where you're starting to get to the scenario where you look at a series and the Cardinals are favored. BK and I said on Friday, taking on the Reds, I'd expect the Cardinals to sweep Cincinnati. Now, it wasn't pretty. You had to get 2 comebacks, but you swept them. I'd expect them to win this series against the New York Mets. Like when they play the Padres, I know the Padres pitching is good. Man, the Cardinals have put me in a position that I'd expect them to come out with a series win against the Padres. That's the position they've put themselves in, and now it's just a matter of continuing to build on it. So you get Dustin May tonight. Tomorrow, who am I blanking on that gets the start tomorrow? Because Dobbins is on Thursday. Who am I blanking
Cardinals.
on tomorrow? Is it?
It's a Palante turn, is it not?
Yeah, they turned to Palante.
Yeah, Palante. So you get Palante tomorrow, and then you wrap it up with Hunter Dobbins, and we'll see what the role expands with Hunter Dobbins. T-Bone Bradford and I will be back with you tomorrow from 11 to 2. Again, if you missed anything, check it out on the podcast page. But we've got the Fast Lane coming up next from 2 to 6. And don't forget, we got Stanley Cup action tonight starting at 6:30 here on your home for the Blues 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's Kerry Davis, and you can join me and 101 ESPN this Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Paymore in Baldwin. New to the St. Louis area, Paymore is a great way to sell, recycle, and buy electronics. Plus, enter to win a brand new PS5. Paymore is now open with 2 locations in Baldwin and Maplewood.